Chapter 9-10. After hearing Gan Wudong's words, Lu Yi realized that Gan Wudong had sent a message to Nian Yuxian. Even though they hadn't known each other for a long time, Lu Yi knew her temperament. If she didn't want to talk to someone, she wouldn't respond no matter how hard that person tried. Gan Wudong obviously couldn't reach Nian Yuxian and wanted Lu Yi to pass on the message. Lu Yi had no choice but to use the Wei token to contact Nian Yuxian. Soon, Nian Yuxian got a response. Seeing this, Gan Wudong was speechless. "My lord, how should I respond?" Lu Yi looked up at Gan Wudong. "Tell her I have something urgent to talk to her about." Gan Wudong ordered. Lu Yi did as he was told and looked up at Gan Wudong with a strange expression. "What?" My lord asked you to leave," Lu Yi reported. Gan Wudong was speechless. Lu Yi was also speechless. Two divine sea realm cultivators were using him as a messenger, especially one of them who didn't sound nice. What was going on? "Also, my lord asked me to return to the Vicissitude Flame Mountain Pass in 2 days. I can't stay for any reason," Lu Yi continued. Gan Wudong sighed. The Wei token had been given and Nian Yuxian couldn't be contacted. Lu Yi couldn't stay. Gan Wudong thought about it and agreed to Lu Yi's suggestion. "Let's do as you said. Every 7 days, I will send someone to the Vicissitude Flame Mountain Pass to get the goods. If you need to go out, let me know in advance." "Yes, sir." Lu Yi obeyed the order. "These are the materials you need for the next 7 days." Gan Wudong threw a storage bag to Lu Yi. Lu Yi took it and checked it. There were 10,000 fire spiritual stones inside. After leaving the law department, Lu Yi didn't leave for the Vicissitude Flame Mountain Pass immediately. Instead, he sent a message to King Jianghu and the others and asked them to come out for a small gathering. A few days ago, when the members of Team A3 recovered from their injuries, they asked Lu Yi about it. In any case, everyone could be considered to have gone through life and death together, and the mission was more than completed, so it was naturally worth celebrating. But at that time, Lu Yi had been ordered to refine the exploding fire spirit stone, so it wasn't convenient for him to leave at will, so he delayed the time. Now that he was about to return to the Ash Flame Mountain Pass, he naturally had to fulfill his promise. The location of the gathering was chosen by King Jianghu. It was in a restaurant in Great Sky City. There was nothing special about the gathering between cultivators. It was nothing more than drinking and chatting casually. When they were in the mood, they would come down and show off their skills. It was quite a lively scene. Their feelings for each other increased slightly. After eating and drinking to his heart's content, Lu Yi went to the divination hall. The Pan Mountain Saber was repaired. After retrieving the Pan Mountain Saber, Lu Yi's heart also calmed down. Without the Pan Mountain Saber by his side, he always felt that something was missing. Now that the saber had returned to him, it was finally complete. Without any hesitation, he circulated his spiritual energy and soared into the sky, heading straight for the Vicissitude Flame Mountain Pass. On the way here, they encountered the cultivators from the mysterious organization. However, on the way back, it was a smooth journey without any mishaps. In the evening, they finally arrived at the Vicissitude Flame Mountain Pass and headed straight for the spiritual peak where the moon-yearning Immortal bamboo house was located. From afar, he saw the thought moon Immortal sitting by the window on the 2nd floor. She seemed to be bored. She supported her face with one hand and looked in the direction he came from. When their eyes met, the thought moon Immortal immediately retracted her gaze and fiddled with her fingers. Lu Yi came to the bottom of the bamboo building, cupped his fists and said in a low voice, "My lord, I have returned from my leave to report to you." The thought moon Immortal responded softly. She continued to look at her slender white fingers, as if there was a flower on them. Below, Lu Yi maintained his salute and waited for a moment. Seeing that she had no other orders, he said, "I will take my leave." He turned and walked towards his bamboo building. Behind him, the thought moon Immortal opened her mouth. She wanted to ask him how he felt during this mission with the law department team and whether he encountered any danger. However, in the end, she did not ask. After living alone for so many years, she had long forgotten how to properly communicate with others. She did not expect that the mission Lu Yi carried out along the way would actually kill a spirit sea realm cultivator. After returning from the Great Sky City, the days passed peacefully. Every day, besides cultivating, Lu Yi fed the innate skill tree fire spirit stones. Then he took Yi and Hupo to patrol outside for an hour. Although he also knew that patrolling near the vicissitude Flame Mountain Pass would not yield any results, he still had to be worthy of his monthly salary as a patrol captain. If he did not patrol like this, he would be embarrassed to take the 30,000 battle merits monthly salary. The thought Moon Immortal was still the same as before. She appeared and disappeared mysteriously. Lu Yi often did not see her for several days. Occasionally, when they met, they would just bow and pass by. Nothing happened at the vicissitude Flame Mountain Pass, but another major event occurred in the 9 states. The Cloud River battlefield was reopened. Calculating the time, it had been almost 2 months since the fusion of the realms. It was indeed about time to end it. The reopening of the Cloud River battlefield meant that there would be a large number of Cloud River tier cultivators leaving the major passes at the front line. After all, for Cloud River tier cultivators, the Cloud River battlefield was their main home. Of course, not every Cloud River tier cultivator would go to the Cloud River battlefield. There was never a lack of cultivators at the major passes who thirsted for battle merits. Not to mention Cloud River tier cultivators, there were even Spirit Stream tier cultivators. After all, no matter how high one's cultivation was, as long as one joined the military state guard, they would have their own military rank and position and could receive a monthly salary. There were also things that Cloud River tier and Spirit Stream tier cultivators could do at the various major passes. Receiving a monthly salary and exchanging it for spirit sticks to cultivate, the speed of cultivation would not fall behind too much. Compared to this major event that belonged to the 9 states, something had also happened in the military state. The Ziwei Dao Palace had established a sect. On that day, they announced to the military state that they had acknowledged the Jade Blood sect as their superior sect. They had chosen 30 peaks in the Fragrant Mountain as their foundation and would help the Jade Blood sect. When the news spread, it did attract some attention. But that was all. Putting aside the fact that the Ziwei Dao Palace was a sect from the Peerless Continent, there were not many elites in the sect that could be brought out. Even the Jade Blood sect had long since lost its former glory. The combination of these two sects was like a newborn baby relying on an old man, and it did not attract much attention from those powerful forces. Fortunately, the old man had a wide network, so on the day of the Ziwei Dao Palace's opening, there were many divine C-tier cultivators from large sects who came to congratulate them, and the scene was very lively. It also let the cultivators from the Peerless Continent of the Ziwei Dao Palace truly feel the power of the divine C-tier. Inside the bamboo building, Lu Yi sat cross-legged, holding a fire spirit stone in each hand, urging the power of the talent tree to continuously absorb it. His expression was normal, but his heart was filled with anticipation. There was no other reason. The transformation of the talent tree seemed to be completed. It was finally going to be completed. It had been more than a month since he sensed the signs of the talent tree's transformation in the volcano of Mount Tsongyen. During this time, Lu Yi had consumed countless fire spirit stones. More than half of what he had obtained from the underground cave had been fed to the talent tree, and the consumption could be said to be incomparably huge. He had originally thought that with the harvest from the underground cave, he would no longer have to worry about the fuel for the talent tree in the future, but now it seemed that he had thought too simply. With such a large consumption, he had also become more aware of the transformation of the talent tree. Now that the transformation was imminent, he wholeheartedly devoted himself to this matter, and even put aside the matter of cultivation. Another half a day later, after consuming an unknown number of fire spirit stones and immersing his mind, the talent tree hidden in his source aperture suddenly shone brightly, its roots swaying. In an instant, Lu Yi clearly sensed the existence of the talent tree for the first time. He could not sense it before. Although the talent tree had always been hidden in his source aperture, and he could see it every time he immersed his mind, Lu Yi did not feel its existence at all. Until now, Lu Yi clearly sensed that there was a magical thing coexisting with him in his source aperture. Was the transformation complete? As soon as this thought flashed through his mind, Lu Yi was a little dumbfounded, because the talent tree suddenly shrank violently and in the blink of an eye, turned into a ball of flame. Rather than a flame, it was more appropriate to call it a fire seed, because its shape was like a seed. That was not the end of it. The seed burned fiercely, and suddenly, the flames exploded. As the flames churned, the seed sprouted, grew, and then a big tree appeared in his vision. Lu Yi focused his mind, and only now was he finally sure that the talent tree had completed its transformation. But it did not seem to have changed much. The unlit leaves on the talent tree were still shrouded in darkness, but the lit leaves seemed to be brighter. Other than that, there was nothing special. The roots seemed to have become more lush. That's it? Lu Ye's heart sank to the bottom. He had spent a huge amount of fire spirit stones, and more than half of what he had harvested in the underground cave on the talent tree's transformation. He had worked hard for more than a month, and in the end, that's it? No, it shouldn't be like this. He immediately calmed his mind, and as expected, he soon felt something different. In the past, he could not sense the existence of the talent tree, and naturally could not sense the various things inside the talent tree. But now, it was different. He could sense the existence of this divine object itself, and through the talent tree, he could sense the various things inside. For example, the amount of fuel stored. The talent tree had just completed its transformation, so there was naturally no fuel stored inside. There was some before, but it was all used up during the transformation process. At this moment, as the power of the fire spirit stones in his hands continued to be consumed, the fuel in the talent tree also began to accumulate. Continuing to sense it calmly, Lu Ye's expression quickly changed. Although he could not explain it clearly, he seemed to have sensed some changes in the talent tree and the external appearance of these changes. With that thought, he immediately took out a mid-grade spirit stone, held it in his hand, and then activated the talent tree's power and focused his mind to observe. The next moment, a scene that made him happy and shocked appeared. Invisible roots that only he could see extended from his palm and wrapped around the mid-grade spirit stone. When he thought about it, a powerful suction force came from those tiny roots. The spiritual power in the mid-grade spirit stone disappeared at a terrifying speed and flowed into Lu Ye's body through the roots. He had caught a cold and all kinds of discomfort. Chapter 9:11. The spiritual energy in the middle-grade spirit stone was quickly devoured and turned into powder that fell from Lu Ye's fingertips. Lu Yi quickly took out another one. It was still the same. After the transformation, the talent tree had the ability to devour spiritual energy from spirit stones. In the past, the talent tree could only absorb fire elemental energy, such as the earth core fire and the fire spirit stone. It would not react to non-fire elemental energy. But now, with the transformation of the talent tree, the ability of the talent tree had also changed. It was no longer limited to fire elemental energy. If a true lake-stage cultivator used a middle-grade spirit stone like this, it would last at least half a day. But in Lu Ye's hands, it only took a moment for the spiritual energy to be used up. This meant that Lu Yi could absorb the energy from the spirit stone at an incredible speed for his own use. Whether it was for cultivation or recovery, the time spent would be greatly reduced. In other words, with this method, Lu Ye's efficiency in cultivation and recovery was not something that cultivators of the same stage could compare to. It was more than 10 times faster. Because of the existence of the spirit gathering funnel, his cultivation speed was much faster than cultivators of the same stage. Now that he had this ability, his cultivation efficiency would increase by a lot. Fast cultivation speed and high efficiency meant that he could use a shorter time to reach a higher stage. For cultivators, this was simply a dream come true. But while absorbing the spiritual energy from the spirit stone, Lu Yi also noticed that the fuel stored in the talent tree was also rapidly depleting. It seemed that the fire spiritual energy stored in the talent tree was not only used to burn the impurities, but also to maintain the power of the talent tree. After all, the spiritual energy absorbed from the spirit stone was extremely pure with almost no impurities. It did not need the talent tree to burn and refine it. But the fuel stored in the talent tree was still rapidly depleting. This was undoubtedly a problem. Lu Yi did not notice this before. First, he could not detect the amount of fuel stored in the talent tree. Second, he did not have such a cultivation method. This meant that if he wanted to use the Spirit Stone to increase his cultivation speed in the future, he would have to consume the Fire Spirit Stone at the same time. Lu Yi could not help but feel lucky that he made the deal with Gan Wudong in Grand Sky City. Otherwise, with the Fire Spirit Stone in his hand, he would not be able to maintain it for long. Initially, he only needed the Fire Spirit Rock to activate the Spirit Runes on the talent tree. Although he needed a lot, it was fine as long as he had enough. But now, if he needed to use it to cultivate, there would be no end to it. Under such circumstances, it was naturally important to have a stable channel to obtain Fire Spirit Stones. Yi and Hu Po were dumbfounded as they watched one mid-grade Spirit Stone after another being consumed. They didn't know what method Lu Yi was using to be able to consume Spirit Stones so quickly. Lu Yi didn't bother to explain, but in the blink of an eye, she saw Hu Po chewing on his Yao core, crunching it loudly. A bold idea suddenly popped up in his mind. Under Hu Po's confused gaze, he reached into the storage bag around Hu Po's neck and took out a Yao core. Holding it in his hand, he activated the power of his talent tree. Roots spread out and wrapped around the Yao core. In the next moment, a rich power was extracted from the Yao core and poured into Lu Ye's body. As the spiritual power circulated, it was refined by the talent tree and turned into pure energy. It really works. Lu Yi was shocked. It was just a sudden thought. The talent tree was no longer limited to absorbing fire-type energy. Since spirit stones could do it, then wouldn't it work with Yao cores? He didn't expect it to work. Sensing the change in the Yao core in Lu Ye's hand, he covered her red lips. Hu Po's tiger eyes widened even more. The energy stored in a Yao core was undoubtedly much greater than that of a mid-grade spirit stone. After all, it was the essence of a demon's lifetime of cultivation. It wasn't something a mid-grade spirit stone could compare to. But even so, it only lasted for a cup of tea's time before it completely dried up. What was left in Lu Ye's hand was only a dry mass of impurities the size of a jujube pit. Lu Yi was excited. After the transformation, the talent tree was no longer limited to absorbing fire-type energy. Spirit stones could do it, Yao cores could do it too. Could the spiritual power in a cultivator's body work as well? Lu Yi immediately extinguished this horrifying thought as soon as it appeared in his mind. Although he was very sure that the talent tree could absorb the spiritual power in a cultivator's body for its own use, doing so would be no different from eating people. There was still a huge psychological barrier. Lu Yi secretly warned himself that he couldn't open this trap. Once he did, it was very likely to lead to some extremely bad consequences. Under Hu Po's vigilant gaze, Lu Yi took out another Yao core from his storage bag. He examined it for a moment, then threw it directly into his mouth. Every time he saw Hu Po eating so enthusiastically, he had long wanted to taste a Yao core. Lu Yi, he couldn't hold back anymore and exclaimed. Hu Po's eyes were about to pop out. "Master, how can you eat a Yao core? That's my snack." Lu Yi was surprised to find that the Yao core tasted pretty good. There wasn't any special smell. He swallowed it whole and quietly activated the talent tree's power. The roots in his abdomen twisted and quickly absorbed the energy in the Yao core. Gluttony's feast was also activated, and a buzzing sound was heard. In just a moment, the energy in the Yao core was completely digested. This was much more efficient than letting the talent tree absorb it. "Lu Yi, are you all right?" Yi asked with concern. She couldn't understand why Lu Yi would suddenly make such a rash move. Yao cores were generally used to refine pills and set up formations. Yao beasts would also eat Yao cores of the same category, but she had never heard of this thing being eaten by humans. "I'm fine," Lu Yi comforted. "I have an extra ability. I can digest it, don't worry." Yi was relieved when she heard him say that. However, she still paid close attention to Lu Ye's changes, fearing that something was wrong with him. Lu Yi reached out towards Hu Po's storage bag. Hu Po covered it with its two paws and looked at Lu Yi with a pleading expression. Its meaning was obvious. "I don't have much left." Lu Yi glared at it. Only then did Hu Po let go of its paws. Although the transformation of the talent tree did not improve Lu Ye's cultivation, the ability of the talent tree now gave him many more cultivation methods and greatly improved his cultivation efficiency. As a result, his growth rate would far surpass his peers. Such benefits were simply unimaginable. Compared to a simple increase in strength, this kind of transformation could really affect Lu Ye's life and was something he desperately desired. However, along with it, the expenses he would have to pay in the future would be huge. For the time being, Yang Kai decided not to think about it. The transformation of the talent tree had been completed, so Lu Yi was in a good mood and decided to cultivate properly to reward himself. In any case, he had broken through to the first-order true lake realm for some time now. It was rare for him to have such a stable cultivation environment and more cultivation methods, so it was time for him to raise his cultivation to the second-order true lake realm. Connecting his consciousness to the heavens, a vortex of world energy appeared in front of Yang Kai. From this vortex, pure world energy poured out and spread out in all directions, wrapping around the figures of one man, one spirit, and one tiger. Adjusting to the level most suitable for himself, Lu Yi continued to absorb the power of the fire spirit stone to replenish the energy reserves of the talent tree while constructing a small spirit gathering funnel. He looked at the vortex of world energy filled with world energy, her eyes slightly blurred. Lu Yi, where do you think this vortex leads to? Who knows? Lu Yi casually replied, but I've heard people say that this vortex is connected to earth veins or spirit veins of different quality. That's why there's an endless stream of heaven and earth spiritual qi flowing out for cultivators to refine. This was common knowledge, but so far, no one had been able to prove it because even the divine sense of a spirit sea realm cultivator could not penetrate the vortex to investigate the situation on the other side. However, there was no water without a source in this world. Such rich world energy could not be born out of thin air. There had to be a source. Therefore, the theory that the vortex was connected to earth veins or spirit veins of different quality was accepted by most cultivators in the 9 continents. Then if we can pass through this vortex, wouldn't we be able to cultivate in an earth vein or spirit vein? He suddenly had an idea. Lu Yi laughed. That's a good idea, but unfortunately, we need to have this method. Even the divine sense of a spirit sea realm cultivator could not detect the situation on the other side of the vortex. So how could they pass through? While laughing, Lu Ye's expression suddenly changed. Another bold idea surged in his mind. The divine sense of a spirit sea realm cultivator could not pass through this vortex of world energy. He wondered if the roots of the talent tree could do it? If it could, then wouldn't it? Thinking of this, Lu Yi could no longer hold back. He quickly raised his hand and pressed it on the vortex of world energy. He did not know what he was going to do, so she just watched curiously. Hoopa was pouring out the Yao cores from his storage pouch, fiddling with them one by one, dejected. His claws were not enough, and he could not count them all. On the other side, Lu Ye's mind moved slightly, and a root that only he could see extended from his palm, probing into the vortex of world energy in front of him. The transformation of the talent tree this time allowed Lu Yi to sense the existence of the divine object, the talent tree. Therefore, he could clearly sense the extension of the root. To him, the extended root was equivalent to his antennae. The root did not pass through from the other side of the vortex of world energy, which meant that the root had successfully probed into the vortex of world energy. Lu Ye's expression suddenly changed, because in his perception, there was an extremely rich world energy on the other side of the vortex of world energy. The root's sense of touch was extremely sharp, and Lu Yi could feel it from all directions. Compared to the cultivation environment created by this method, there was simply no comparison. Chapter 9:12. If one were to define the density of spiritual energy in his current cultivation environment as a standard, the environment that the roots were in now was at least 3 standard degrees. A difference of 3 times. And the deeper the roots went, the bigger the difference. By the time the roots reached a limit, the difference in the cultivation environment had already reached a level of 5 times. Lu Yi had only just realized that the extension of the roots was not endless. It seemed to have something to do with the strength of his divine sense. Now that he had activated the power of his talent tree, the roots could only extend for about 3 feet at most. Even so, a difference of 5 times was an exaggeration. This also meant that if Lu Yi used the roots of the talent tree to absorb the spiritual power of the world on the other side of the vortex to cultivate, he would definitely be faster than in a normal state of cultivation. Maybe it could reach 5 times, maybe it was not enough, maybe it could even be more. After all, under normal circumstances, he cultivated with the help of the many small funnels that gathered spiritual energy. Such a cultivation method. Lu Yi could not make an accurate comparison between this method and using the talent tree's roots to absorb the spiritual energy. But it was undeniable that he had inadvertently found a method to rapidly increase his cultivation. And this method was built on the foundation of the talent tree's transformation. Suppressing the excitement in his heart, Lu Yi had a new question in his mind. Is the situation inside the vortex of spiritual power different at different levels? To do so, CC is the starter. The cultivation environment he created through cherishing heaven's secrets. The spiritual energy whirlpool was at the 3rd level. 1 day and 1 night would cost about 10,000 merits. Above that, there were even higher levels, suitable for late-stage true lake stage and even divine sea stage cultivators. Below that, there were 2 lower levels, suitable for early-stage true lake stage cultivators. He was an exception, so when he tried to use heaven's secrets, he chose the 3rd level. It was not difficult to explore. The level of the spiritual energy whirlpool could be changed at will. As long as he adjusted the level of the spiritual energy whirlpool, he would be able to explore. Lu Yi immediately changed the level of the spiritual energy whirlpool. Moments later, he came to a shocking conclusion. No matter what level the spiritual energy whirlpool was, the world inside was the same. If that was the case, then the rumors that he had heard before were not true. The saying that different levels of spiritual vortexes were connected to different quality earth veins or spiritual veins was simply nonsense. They might indeed be connected to some kind of earth vein or spirit vein. Otherwise, there was no way to explain where the rich spiritual energy of heaven and earth came from. However, they were all in the same place. The reason why there were differences in the cultivation environment created by borrowing the mysteries of heaven was because of the different levels of the vortexes of spiritual energy. If the world inside the vortex of spiritual power was compared to a bottle, and the spiritual power of heaven and earth was the water in the bottle, then the vortex of spiritual power was the mouth of the bottle. The size of the bottle mouth. This determined the speed at which the water flowed out of the bottle, thus resulting in a different cultivation environment. The lower the level of the vortex, the smaller the opening of the bottle. Since that was the case, Lu Yi didn't need a large opening. He only needed the most basic opening. It would be convenient for him to extend the roots of his talent tree into the bottle. He could use the lowest level of spirit power whirlpool to cultivate. In this way, the amount of merit points consumed for cultivation would be greatly reduced. However, his cultivation efficiency would not be affected in any way. This was no longer borrowing the mysteries of heaven to cultivate, but stealing the mysteries of heaven. Lu Yi felt that his actions were no different from that of a thief, and he didn't know how the mysteries of heaven would react to this. He carefully maintained it for a moment and only relaxed when he found that there were no abnormalities. The mysteries of heaven were everywhere and knew everything. It was impossible for them to not notice his blatant theft. Since they didn't stop him, it meant that they tacitly approved of it. Thinking about it, whether he was stealing or not, this was his own ability after all. Why would the mysteries of heaven stop him? He couldn't say that he had a talent tree. That was his fault. After understanding this, Lu Yi felt at ease. The sharp changes in the talent tree triggered all kinds of follow-ups, completely changing the cultivation method that Lu Yi had maintained for several years. Many thoughts surged in his mind. Lu Yi suddenly stood up. What's wrong? Dee was puzzled. She didn't understand why Lu Yi stood up when he was cultivating. Lu Yi said and flew out of the window. Soon he arrived. In the ruined Blue Flame Mountain City's Tianji Hall, he connected to the mysteries of heaven and entered the War Merit Pavilion. He wasn't in the mood to talk nonsense with the Golden Flood Dragon and Silver Flood Dragon. He went straight to the place where he could exchange golden spirit lots. With a wave of his hand, he exchanged 10 golden spirit lots. He hurriedly left the War Merit Pavilion and returned to his bamboo house. Seeing Lu Yi grab a handful of spirit lots, Yi finally understood what he was going to do. Lu Yi sat down again and crushed a golden spirit lot. The spirit lot's powder gathered and twisted, turning into a golden whirlpool. Then, extremely pure and rich spirit power flowed out from it. Yi and Hoopa hurriedly sat still and inhaled the spirit power to cultivate. This spirit power didn't need any refining to become a powerful foundation. Therefore, using spirit lots to cultivate had always been a method for 9 provinces' cultivators to quickly become stronger. Lu Yi wasn't in a hurry to cultivate. Looking at the golden whirlpool in front of him, he was excited and nervous. If things were really as he thought, then the talent tree's transformation this time would be of great help to him. Taking a light breath, he raised his hand and pressed it in front of the golden whirlpool, activating the talent tree's power. Invisible roots stretched out and probed into the whirlpool in Lu Ye's perception. In the next moment, Lu Ye's expression shook. The cultivation environment created by the spirit lots was the best environment that 9 provinces' cultivators could have. However, behind the whirlpool, there was an even better environment, one that was unknown to others. Lu Yi clearly sensed that the talent tree's roots had probed into a liquid. That wasn't real liquid, but the condensation of pure spirit power. It was a power that anyone could absorb at will. In an instant, he felt as if he was floating in the clouds and his whole body was dizzy. Forcibly stabilizing his mind, he continued to activate the talent tree's power and probed deeper with his roots. However, out of his expectations, the situation this time was a little different from the previous spiritual energy whirlpool. Inside the spiritual energy whirlpool, the deeper he went, the better the environment was. However, inside the whirlpool created by the spirit lots, there didn't seem to be much difference. Thinking about it, the pure spirit power had already condensed into a liquid existence. What difference could there be? Compared to the environment inside and outside the whirlpool, the difference was at least 3 times. Lu Yi couldn't help but laugh. He pulled Yi over and fiercely kissed her on the face. Yi, I'm rich. Yi was dumbfounded. She was in the middle of her cultivation when Lu Yi suddenly made such a move, which really made her feel at a loss. Moreover, she had been with Lu Yi day and night for several years, and they were like real family to each other. Lu Yi had never done anything too intimate with her. At most, he would sometimes pat her little head and pinch her a little. Being kissed like this was the first time. I'm rich, Lu Yi repeated. He excitedly grabbed Hoopa beside him and fiercely kissed him. Lan Wu. Hoopa's face was full of disgust as he struggled with all his might. Yi calmed down and noticed Lu Ye's excitement. She couldn't help but ask, what happened? Lu Yi didn't mention the talent tree. It was a little complicated to explain. He only said, I have a special method that can reach into the inside of this whirlpool and use the environment inside to cultivate. He was curious. The environment inside the whirlpool, what is it like? It's hard to describe, but the cultivation environment inside is very good. It's 3 times better than here. 3 times? He was shocked. Lu Ye's sudden kiss was thrown out of her mind. Her little brain immediately realized the benefits this could bring to Lu Yi. Doesn't that mean that you can grow 3 times faster than others? More than that. Lu Yi smiled slightly. 3 times faster than me before. In the past, his cultivation speed was much faster than ordinary cultivators. This also allowed him to gain a lot of advantages when using the spirit lots to cultivate. Naturally, it couldn't be used as a standard to measure cultivation speed. Lu Yi, you're amazing. Yi praised from the bottom of her heart. She was happy for Lu Yi from the bottom of her heart. Her little brain thought of something and tilted her head. Lu Yi, if that's the case, then I suggest you exchange for a white spirit lot to cultivate in the future. Why is that? Lu Yi asked. Look, a white spirit lot only costs 200 battle merits, right? A gold spirit lot costs 14,580 points. The difference is many times. If you cultivate with a white spirit lot and a gold spirit lot, isn't there no difference? In this way, won't you save a lot of battle merits? Then you can buy whatever you want in the War Merit Pavilion in the future. Lu Yi was stunned by her words. He felt that it made sense, but when he thought about it carefully, something didn't seem right. Ming. Hoopa lowered his eyes. He couldn't bear to look at his two masters directly. Even I, a tiger, can understand it. Why are you two discussing it so enthusiastically? Lu Yi finally understood what was wrong and laughed. There is no difference between the cultivation environment created by a gold spirit lot and a white spirit lot. The only difference is the length of time it lasts. A white spirit lot is a stick of incense while a gold one is a day and a night. I just heard Yi's words. I suddenly felt that it made sense, but I was too excited and didn't think about it carefully. Now that I understand, I know that Yi's proposal won't work. Yi also came to her senses and her face turned red. Lu Yi rubbed her head. My Lu Yi is the best. Yi smiled sweetly. Cultivate, cultivate. Lu Yi waved his hand. Since the transformation of the talent tree gave him such a special cultivation method, he naturally couldn't waste it. Right now, he was a first-order true lake realm cultivator. He really wanted to know how long it would take for him to reach the second-order true lake realm. Chapter 9:13. Because a golden spiritual stick could last for a little more than a day and a night, Lu Yi could no longer patrol every day since he started cultivating. He could only patrol every other day. Fortunately, there were no enemies in the Blue Flame Mountain Pass. As long as the Jianghu Immortal stayed here, the myriad demons Ridge would not dare to invade. The deterrence of a top ghost cultivator in the Spirit Sea realm was too great. No one knew where she would hide. If someone dared to sneak over, they would be exposed and killed by her. The transaction with the Law Division was also carried out as scheduled. The explosive fire spirit stones that Lu Yi refined while cultivating were enough to meet the requirements of the task. Time flew by, and nearly half a month later, the last of the 10 golden spiritual sticks was consumed. The golden vortex in front of him slowly disappeared, and the cultivation was over. Lu Yi opened his eyes and examined his cultivation, feeling the rapid growth in the past half a month. The benefits brought to him after the transformation of the talent tree were greater than he had expected. This was because when the roots of the talent tree reached into the golden vortex to absorb the pure and rich spiritual energy of the world inside the vortex, the efficiency was simply incomparable to that of the small funnel. At first, he thought that the 3 times difference in environment meant that the cultivation efficiency was 3 times higher. When he really started cultivating, he found that this was not the case. If the cultivation method of building the small funnel was called absorption, then the cultivation method of the talent tree's roots reaching into the world opposite the vortex was completely plundering. One was passively accepting the spiritual power flowing out of the golden vortex, and the other was actively acquiring it. There was no comparison at all. Lu Yi felt that the efficiency of his cultivation using a golden spiritual stick was more than 10 times faster than normal. Of course, the difference in the environment inside and outside the vortex was also one of the reasons for this result. Outside the vortex, there was pure spiritual power that could be directly absorbed, but inside the vortex, there was the kind of spiritual liquid that had been liquefied. In half a month, his cultivation had undergone earth-shaking changes. It could be said that since he started cultivating, he had never experienced such a terrifying speed of advancement, even in the Cloud River realm. Advancing too quickly was not necessarily a good thing. During this period of cultivation, he would occasionally enter the Mirage realm to hone himself, just to familiarize himself with the growth of his cultivation as soon as possible. The 10 golden spirit sticks he had exchanged for had been used up, and Lu Yi was not going to exchange any more golden spirit sticks for cultivation in the short term. Although the feeling of rapidly increasing his cultivation base was fascinating, he would never indulge in it. He had to stabilize his cultivation base for a period of time before he could continue cultivating. He led Hu Pe and Yi out of the bamboo building. Just as he was about to patrol the surroundings, a fragrant wind suddenly lingered around his nose. By the time Lu Yi regained his senses, the Thought Moon Immortal was already standing in front of him. The distance between them was less than a foot. Lu Yi jumped in fright and hurriedly took a few steps back. He cupped his fists and bowed, "Milord." Their mountain pass master was always so elusive. For the past half a month, they hadn't even seen his shadow. Today, he had suddenly appeared. At this moment, Nian Yuxian was sizing up Lu Yi with uncertainty. She spread out her divine sense and carefully examined him. Although she had already come to a conclusion, she still couldn't be sure. Third Order True Lake Realm. Half a month ago, when Lu Yi returned from Grand Sky City, he was only a First Order True Lake cultivator. Half a month later, he had actually reached the Third Order True Lake Realm. Even though Nian Yuxian was experienced and knowledgeable, she had never seen such an outrageous thing. Moreover, how could such a thing happen? The cultivation of the True Lake Realm required one to undergo the 9 revolutions of spirit energy. Every time one's cultivation base increased, the amount of spirit energy required was extremely large. The further one progressed, the harder it was to progress. Even if Lu Yi had enough merit points to maintain the state of cultivation with the golden spirit stick, it was still impossible for him to advance 2 minor realms in half a month. However, such an outrageous thing had actually happened right under her nose. Nian Yuxian had always given Lu Yi the impression that she was as cold as ice. But now, her face was filled with surprise and shock. It was a visual contrast that made him feel funny. Lu Yi didn't dare to laugh. He only replied seriously, "Milord's eyes are like torches." Lu Yi wasn't surprised that Nian Yuxian could see through his cultivation. The difference between their cultivations was obvious. With a sweep of her divine sense, his cultivation was naturally exposed. Nian Yuxian was stunned for a moment. Lu Yi waited for a moment. She didn't seem to have any intention of speaking. He could only say, "If Milord doesn't have any further instructions, this subordinate will go on patrol." "Go." Nian Yuxian nodded. She watched Lu Ye's back as he left. She was still in a daze for a long time. A familiar figure once again appeared in her mind. The last time she had been seriously injured and on the verge of death, Lu Yi had used some inexplicable method to bring her back to life. In a daze, she saw the figure of that person on Lu Ye's body. Back then, she had almost encountered the same danger. That person had also saved her like a divine soldier descending from the heavens. Since then, she had wholeheartedly followed and served that person until he died in battle. It was the same today. Back then, that person's cultivation had also risen so quickly that it was inconceivable. She wasn't in the mood to investigate Lu Ye's secrets. Not to mention that Lu Yi was her subordinate, he had saved her life last time. Nian Yuxian couldn't possibly have any ill intentions towards Lu Yi. She was bewildered. The Blue Blood sect. Would such a monstrous genius always appear? Previously, when she heard that the great sects of Myriad Demon Ridge viewed him as a thorn in their side, she felt that Myriad Demon Ridge was making a big fuss over nothing. No matter how outstanding Lu Ye's performance in the Spirit Stream battlefield and the Cloud River battlefield was, he was still just a little guy in the Spirit Stream realm and Cloud River realm. He couldn't affect the situation of the two camps. But now, it seemed that there were clearly people in Myriad Demon Ridge who understood. Coupled with the previous incident, it was a bit like once bitten, twice shy. Regarding this potential danger, she had to nip it in the bud. Third Order True Lake Realm. If that was the case, she might be able to put that matter on the agenda. Level 11 originally, she had long since given up on this matter, but since her life was saved by Lu Yi, and after witnessing his miraculous methods, she couldn't help but think about it again, because if she had the help of that method, she might have a chance to succeed. And once she succeeded, her strength would definitely improve greatly. At that time, as long as she found the opportunity, she would definitely be able to kill Wan Zhonggang. As these thoughts flashed through her mind, Nian Yuxian made her decision. Dozens of kilometers away from Ash Flame Mountain Pass, Lu Yi stood still and looked in the direction of the volcanic crater. At the end of the siege of Lonely Mountain City, he was worried about Nian Yuxian's safety and chased after her. He really didn't know how the battle would turn out. But judging from the situation at that time, the Myriad Demon Ridge cultivators would have no problem defending Lonely Mountain City, but there would definitely be a lot of casualties. He didn't care about the situation in Lonely Mountain City, only about the volcanic crater. There were many fire spirit stones that had yet to be mined in the underground cave, even though he now had a stable channel to obtain fire spirit stones, and he hadn't used up all the ones he plundered last time. Every time he cultivated, he would need to consume the stored fuel to activate the power of his talent tree. His current state of cultivation was basically to activate the power of his talent tree while absorbing the energy of the fire spirit stones, which consumed a lot of energy. There were still many leaves on his talent tree that hadn't been ignited, which was where he needed the fire spirit stones the most. If he didn't think of a way to get more income, sooner or later, he would run out of money. Let's go take a look. Even though he didn't think there was much hope, there might be some gains. There was no loss in taking a look. Previously, he was busy cultivating and didn't have time to think about this. Now that he had this thought, he couldn't hold it in anymore. Along the way, before they even reached the mouth of the volcano, they saw many figures flying back and forth in the distance. They were all busy and in full swing. When Lu Yi saw this, he knew that his plan was hopeless. The Myriad Demon Ridge was obviously mining the fire spirit stones in the underground cave. Everything good in there was going to be swept clean. Lu Yi could use the battlefield imprint of the Myriad Demon Ridge to blend in, but the reason he could do it so smoothly last time was because Lonely Mountain City was facing a powerful enemy, and no one could verify his identity. If he did it again this time, it might not be so smooth. If someone wanted to verify his identity, he wouldn't be able to justify himself. Moreover, even if he blended in, it wouldn't be of any use. He couldn't secretly mine the fire spirit stones by himself. How much could he collect? Unless he had the ability to sneak into Lonely Mountain City's treasury and loot it clean. This thought flashed through his mind, but Lu Yi quickly rejected it. It was too dangerous. Just as he was about to leave, he suddenly saw a familiar figure flying out of the volcanic crater. When he took a closer look, it was indeed the person he knew. Moreover, the spiritual power fluctuations on her body were obviously not something a Cloud River tier cultivator could possess. She had also advanced to the true lake tier. Looking at the direction she was flying in, it seemed to be toward Lonely Mountain City. After pondering for a moment, Lu Yi did not disturb them. Although they had spent a period of time together and had even worked together for a short period of time, their positions were ultimately different. If they met on the battlefield in the future, they would still be enemies who needed to fight. But then again, when Lu Yi was still in the Return to Heaven Valley spiritual land, many cultivators from the Myriad Demon Ridge were about to encircle and annihilate him. It was this woman who secretly informed Lu Yi, telling him to escape. Although Lu Yi didn't escape in the end, he still owed her a favor. Therefore, if they really met in the future, he could consider going easy on her. When he returned from his patrol, he happened to see a cultivator from Vast Sky City waiting outside his bamboo house. This person was a subordinate of Gan Wudang and was in charge of taking the refined exploding fire spirit stones from Lu Yi. His name was Qing Xiu. He had met Lu Yi a few times and was somewhat familiar with him. However, at this moment, this fifth-order true Lake Realm cultivator seemed to be in a bad situation. He stood stiffly in front of the bamboo house, not daring to move. His face was as pale as paper, and large beads of sweat slid down his forehead. His clothes were already wet. One of his hands gripped the sword at his waist so tightly that his knuckles turned white. It couldn't be helped because Thought Moon Immortal was sitting on the trunk of a big tree not far away. Her hands were on both sides of the tree and her two long legs were swinging. Her expression seemed relaxed, but a fierce aura filled the air and affected Qing Xiu's will. Chapter 9:14. The Thought Moon Immortal's actions caused Qing Xiu to be like a fully drawn bow, unable to release the arrow. Needless to say, it was extremely uncomfortable. Seeing Lu Ye's return, Qing Xiu felt as if he had been pardoned. He hurriedly gave Lu Yi a pleading look. Seeing the situation, Lu Yi didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He didn't know how he had provoked the Thought Moon Immortal to be tortured like this. He took a few steps forward and cupped his fists. "My lord, I've returned from my patrol. There are no abnormalities within 100 miles. Please give me your instructions." The Thought Moon Immortal nodded softly and said, "Come find me later. I have something to tell you." Lu Yi replied. When he looked up again, the Thought Moon Immortal had already disappeared. Qing Xiu, who was beside him, almost collapsed. His legs and stomach shook as he said, "Brother Lu, please help me up? After a while, in the bamboo house, Cheng Xiu's pale face regained some color. He looked at Lu Yi with emotion. To be able to be so safe and sound while working under that person was also a skill. He cursed in his heart but didn't dare to complain. The spiritual perception of a divine sea realm cultivator was not to be trifled with. How could he dare to say anything disrespectful? He only talked about business, which was to hand over the explosive fire spirit stones to Lu Yi. After he finished counting, Lu Yi said, "Brother Cheng, go back and tell your master that the time of receiving the goods has been changed to once a month. Once every 7 days is a little too frequent. Not to mention that I have to trouble you to run around on both sides, I also have to go into closed-door cultivation sometimes." This suggestion was reasonable. Cheng Xiu immediately agreed. "I'll go back and report to my lord. However, the final decision is not up to me. You just have to say it." Cheng Xiu didn't stay for long and quickly left. After he left, Lu Yi came to the Thought Moon Immortal's bamboo house. Before he could speak, the Thought Moon Immortal's voice came from inside. Lu Yi went straight in. The Thought Moon Immortal was waiting. "What orders do you have, my lord?" Lu Yi asked. Ever since he came to this Ash Flame Mountain Pass, the Thought Moon Immortal didn't care about him other than giving him some missions in the first few days. Therefore, Lu Yi didn't know why she was looking for him. His strength is nothing in front of the Thought Moon Immortal. "Let's not talk about this for now. I need you to use that spirit rune again." In order to understand the flight of the rainbow phoenixes, she had to personally experience it once more. Only then could she decide whether or not to bring Lu Yi along. Of course. When Lu Yi nodded, he had already unsheathed his long saber. It slid across his palm, causing blood to flow. Then, he extended his hand towards the Thought Moon Immortal. Jianghu Immortal understood tacitly. When her fingernails slid across her palm, blood similarly gushed out from the wound. Then, she gently placed her hand on Lu Ye's palm. Lu Ye's eyebrows shot up as he gently grasped it. It had to be said that this hand was very soft, almost as if it had no bones. Last time, when he was on the brink of death, everything he did was for the sake of emergency, so he didn't carefully experience it. When he held it, it was as if he was holding a piece of smooth and warm jade. In the next moment, the image of the Xiando in their palms turned into 2 streaks of blood-red light and flew to the back of their hands, forming the shape of a single wing. The shape was as red as blood, vivid and lifelike. The moment the flight of the rainbow phoenixes was successfully constructed, Lu Yi could clearly feel the vast and deep foundation within the Thought Moon Immortal's body. Correspondingly, the Thought Moon Immortal also felt the astonishing vitality within Lu Ye's body. "Can't you let go?" Thought Moon Immortal asked. Lu Yi shook his head. "Only through close physical contact can we share the foundation of our physical bodies." This explanation was reasonable. The Thought Moon Immortal asked again, "What's with the vitality in your body?" Such a vast vitality was no longer something a true Lake Realm cultivator could possess. Even those divine Sea Realm body cultivators might not have Lu Ye's foundation. "Some opportunities," Lu Yi casually replied, not bothering to explain in detail. The Thought Moon Immortal didn't pursue the matter. Instead, she asked, "What other means are there for me to borrow strength from?" Lu Yi thought for a moment and said, "A little spiritual connection. If the flight of the rainbow phoenixes targets the physical body, then a little spiritual connection targets the spirit. However, if we really use it, there will be no more secrets between us. Compared to Sir's spirit, the strength of my spirit is not worth mentioning. It's fine if I don't lend it." The Thought Moon Immortal nodded. She withdrew her jade-like hand from Lu Ye's and said calmly, "I'll give you a mission." "Please tell me, sir." The Thought Moon Immortal took out her guard token and activated it. Lu Ye's expression turned serious. This kind of mission issued through the guard token was extremely official. It was also recognized by Heaven's Secret. In other words, he could obtain battle merits. He immediately checked the guard token with both apprehension and anticipation. When he saw the contents of the mission, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The mission was very simple. Offer 3 drops of soul-cleansing water to the Mountain Pass Master. What kind of mission was this? If you want it, just say it. If you say it, I'll naturally give it to you. There's no need to go through so much trouble. Louis took out a bottle from his storage pouch and passed it to the Thought Moon Immortal. There were clearly more than 3 drops of soul-cleansing water in the bottle. There might even be 10 drops. That's too much. It's beyond my authority. The Thought Moon Immortal frowned. The 3 drops are required for the mission. The rest is a gift from your humble servant to you, sir. The Thought Moon Immortal's expression was somewhat strange. The word gift made her feel very old. However, this was Lu Ye's goodwill after all. She accepted it readily. The next moment, Lu Yi sensed a movement in his battlefield imprint. He lowered his head to check and found that his battle merits had increased by a lot. Including the gains from refining the explosive fire spirit rock, he now had almost 230,000 battle merits. In a few days, he would be distributing the 2 moon rods again. He would gain another 60,000 battle merits. Lu Yi didn't know what it was like for other true Lake Realm cultivators to obtain battle merits. However, ever since he came to the Vicissitude Flame Mountain Pass, it had always been very easy to obtain battle merits. Moreover, it was usually large amounts of battle merits that came into his account. I'll give you 3 days of leave. After 3 days, follow me to a place. Lu Yi had only asked casually, but he never expected the Thought Moon Immortal to have no intentions of hiding anything from him. Liyuan. Where was Liyuan? Lu Yi had never heard of it before. He took out his 10-point map in a hurry and checked it. After confirming the location of Liyuan, he could not help but raise his head and look at the Thought Moon Immortal. The Liyuan that borders the Mist Province and the War Province? Yes. The Thought Moon Immortal nodded. Lu Yi was immediately alarmed. Why are you going there? If he wanted to go there, he would have to pass through the Myriad Devil Ridge's territory in the War Province and venture deep into the heart of the Myriad Devil Ridge. Just how dangerous was that? Of course, he could choose to take a detour, but if he did, it would definitely take up a lot of time. With the Thought Moon Immortal's temper and personality, it was unlikely for her to take a detour. It was very likely for her to directly pass through the entire War Province. Since I want to go, I obviously have my reasons for going. This isn't a mission. You can call it a request, so you don't have to go. The 3 days are a holiday, but it's also time for you to consider. You can give me an answer in 3 days. I'll take my leave. Lu Yi cupped his fists and retreated. He finally understood that the Thought Moon Immortal's investigation of the flight of the colorful phoenixes and her request for him to contribute the soul-cleansing water were all preparations for the trip in 3 days. He didn't know what secrets were hidden in the Li Plains, but if it could attract an expert like the Thought Moon Immortal, it was obviously a huge benefit. The Thought Moon Immortal gave him 3 days to consider, but to Lu Yi he didn't need to consider anything at all. Since his sect master wanted to borrow his strength, he naturally couldn't refuse. He didn't forget that when he was in danger in Lonely Mountain City, the Thought Moon Immortal saved him at the risk of being exposed. Although he also saved the Thought Moon Immortal's life later on, and they were considered to be even, interpersonal relationships weren't a transaction, nor was it a bargaining chip. Since his sect master was going, he had to accompany him. However, before that, he had to make more preparations. At the very least, he had to increase his life-saving assets. It seemed like he would have to spend some of the battle merits he obtained. After walking out of the Thought Moon Immortal's bamboo building, Lu Yi went straight to the Tianji Hall. He quickly connected to the Tianji Hall and entered the War Merit Hall. Following his memory, he arrived in front of a stone platform. There was a treasure robe placed on the stone platform, and it was a high-grade magic treasure robe. Magic cultivators had a higher demand for protective treasures like treasure robes and armor. This was because the physical bodies of magic cultivators couldn't be compared to cultivators of other sections. If they had a treasure robe or armor to protect them, they would have more means to protect their lives. Weapon cultivators generally didn't have a use for them, especially for weapon cultivators like Lu Yi who pursued their own battle techniques. Treasure robes and armor were even more burdensome. This was because for weapon cultivators, excessive protection would instead reduce the resistance to their own advancement. If they wore treasure robes for a long time, it was very easy for the weapon cultivator to misestimate their own strength, and it would also reduce the weapon cultivator's vigilance and grasp of battle opportunities. Therefore, since the beginning of his cultivation, Lu Yi had never bought any treasure robes or armor. Chapter 9:15. What's more, Lu Yi had the defensive spirit pattern as a means of protection, so he basically didn't need treasured clothes or armor. But this time he had to buy it. Going out with Nian Yuxian, who knew what kind of danger he would encounter and what kind of enemies he would encounter. With the protection of the treasured clothes, he could also have more life-saving means. It wasn't that there weren't better treasured clothes in the War Merit Pavilion. Not to mention the magic tool level, there were even spirit treasure level ones. But with Lu Ye's cultivation, the high-grade magic tool level was already the limit for him. No matter how advanced the treasured clothes were, it would be difficult for him to activate them. However, the price of this Scarlet Dragon battle suit was also not cheap. It was a full 90,000 battle merits. Compared to the soul-suppressing pagoda, which was more than 180,000 battle merits, its price was indeed only a fraction. However, the soul-suppressing pagoda was a soul tool that even a divine sea realm cultivator might not have, so its rarity was naturally not comparable to the treasured clothes. But compared to other magic tools of the same quality, the price of 90,000 battle merits seemed outrageous. Of course, you get what you pay for. Treasured clothes and armors were expensive on one hand, but their quality was also unquestionable. It was the best magic tool level. Lu Yi only pondered for a moment, then decisively exchanged for the Scarlet Dragon battle suit. The loss of 90,000 battle merits really came and went quickly. It was quite heavy, but the material was as smooth as silk. He didn't know what material was used to make it. In the 9 regions, cultivators who could sew treasured armors and treasured clothes were extremely rare. If alchemists, array cultivators, and refiners were special talents that the major sects needed to cultivate with all their strength, then those who could sew treasured armors and treasured clothes were special talents among special talents. The Scarlet Dragon battle suit was named after a dragon, but it was obviously impossible to sew it with dragon scales. It was very likely to be made of dragon skin or something like that. After taking off his original clothes and putting on the Scarlet Dragon battle suit, he was immediately in high spirits. It was said that clothes made the man, and saddles made the horse. Because of Lu Ye's experience over the years and his own personality, when dealing with strangers, it was inevitable that he would give people a murderous feeling. However, after putting on this Scarlet Dragon battle suit, the original murderous aura disappeared a lot. Instead, it was more elegant and gentle, like a noble son from a big family or a big sect. Lu Yi activated his spiritual power and sensed it silently for a while. He more or less understood the various aspects of this treasure robe. This treasure robe had a very strong shrinking ability, which was a good thing for Lu Yi because after he used the beast transformation secret technique, his body would change to a certain extent. He had used the beast transformation secret technique twice, and both times his clothes had become ragged, but if he wore this Scarlet Dragon battle suit, he would not have such troubles in the future. Not only that, the armor seemed to be able to change its color. When Lu Yi got it, the color of the armor was aqua blue, but under the urging of spiritual energy, the color of the armor quickly changed. After trying out a few colors, Lu Yi was more inclined towards dark red and black. In the end, after some hesitation, she settled on black. In the end, the elegant and easygoing aqua blue color did not suit his temperament, and the black color was more profound. At this moment, the image of a noble young master from a large family or sect vanished. Lu Yi nodded in satisfaction. As for the flawless white color, that was completely out of the question. His sect destroying Yi was completely incompatible with the pure white color. Many sword cultivators liked to wear white, such as 4th senior brother Li Baxian. His clothes were white with a fluttering red cloud pattern on it. When he moved, it was like a gorgeous sunset, giving off a wild and unrestrained feeling. It was completely different from the pure white color. This was the appearance of the armor. As for what kind of specific functions it had, and how strong the defense it could provide, it still needed to be tested in actual combat. Lu Yi believed that his 90,000 battle merits would not go to waste. After all, this was a product of the War Merit Pavilion. After leaving the War Merit Pavilion, Lu Yi returned to his bamboo house. Yi and Hu Po, who had been left behind to guard the place, immediately saw Lu Yi in his new outfit. They gathered around him, clicking their tongues in wonder as they sized him up. Lu Yi held his head high and puffed out his chest, making his figure look heroic. "Looks good, doesn't it?" Yi couldn't help but nod. "Looks good, really good. It would look even better if it was white." "What kind of eyes are you looking at?" Lu Yi glared at her. He didn't want to show off anymore and sat down cross-legged. He took out the breath fruit core and prepared to enter the Mirage realm to test the defensive power of his artifact robe. Half a day later, Lu Yi opened his eyes and frowned. It wasn't that the result was unsatisfactory, but it was beyond his expectations. In the Mirage realm, the attacks of the 4th or 5th order True Lake Realm cultivators couldn't break through the artifact robe's defense. This artifact robe had greatly increased Lu Yi's strength, at least 30% of his survivability. For others, a artifact robe's defense would naturally be so good that they would be overjoyed. But Lu Yi didn't lose his head because of this. External forces were still external forces. They could be borrowed, but they couldn't be relied on. It was really easy for a weapon cultivator to lose his accurate judgment of his own strength. In the long run, it was very likely that he would be unprepared. If the artifact robe's defense was broken by a master one day, the consequences would be unimaginable. Thinking about it, but he wouldn't abandon the artifact robe for this reason. Since he had already spent 90,000 battle points, it was impossible to put it aside. Lu Yi could only secretly reflect on it at all times. However, compared to the protection provided by the artifact robe, the consumption of spirit energy in battle was obviously much higher. This was the price to pay for wearing the artifact robe. In a big battle, offense was the best defense. Instead of consuming spirit energy on defense, it was better to slash a few more times. The matter of the artifact robe was settled for the time being. After all, this trip was to follow Thought Moon Immortal on a mission. It was good to have such a protective measure. Thought Moon Immortal gave him 3 days. If he used 3 days to cultivate, there was no way for him to improve his strength. Lu Yi thought for a moment and suddenly came up with an idea. If that was the case, it seemed to be feasible. He hurriedly searched through his inventory bag, took out a sound transmission stone, and infused it with spirit energy. Soon, he frowned because the sound transmission stone didn't show any signs of resonance. In other words, the other sound transmission stone wasn't in the same world as the one in his hand. It was very likely that it had been put into the storage bag. After all, in 9 regions, the communication between cultivators relied on the battlefield imprint. The state guards could also rely on the guard token. Who would use such a low-level thing like the sound transmission stone? But if the sound transmission stone was ineffective, how could he find the other party? He couldn't just go to Lonely Mountain City in broad daylight again. Last time, he was able to get through without any danger, but this time, he might not be able to do so. After thinking about it, Lu Yi soon had an idea. He concentrated his mind and searched through the battlefield imprint. He found a brand that he hadn't contacted for a long time and sent out a message. After waiting for a moment, the other party replied with a simple word, "Okay." Lu Yi got up, walked out of the bamboo house, and soared into the sky. On the other side of the bamboo house, Thought Moon Immortal felt something. She opened her eyes and glanced in the direction where Lu Yi disappeared, and then no longer paid any attention. Blue Flame Mountain Pass and Lonely Mountain City Pass were thousands of miles apart. This 1,000 miles of land was regarded as a buffer zone for the confrontation between the two camps and did not belong to either side. In this area, there was a small mountain near Lonely Mountain City Pass. Lu Yi, who had rushed here, looked left and right. He didn't hide his figure and casually found a place to wait. About an hour later, he suddenly sensed that there was something unusual nearby. He quietly urged his divine sense to sense. He easily sensed that a familiar aura was quietly approaching. However, because she was not a ghost cultivator, the concealment method she could use was not very clever. In the eyes of the current Lu Yi, She clearly seemed a little sneaky. He didn't point it out and continued to wait patiently. A moment later, accompanied by a rustling sound, a figure appeared in front of Lu Ye's eyes. There was no doubt that it was a beauty. Her figure was slender and her face was beautiful. There was a meaningful smile on her face. She walked up to Lu Yi and stood 3 feet in front of him. She snorted, "Yi Lu? Or should I call you Lu Ye?" Lu Yi didn't mention the name Yi Lu in front of too many people. The number of people who knew his name was less than 5, and there was only one person who belonged to Mo Ridge. Not long after Lu Yi arrived at the Cloud River battlefield, he teamed up with Shen Little Cat to guard a Grade C spiritual land. This was obviously not her real name, just as she knew from the beginning that Yi Lu was not Lu Ye's real name. The difference was that Shen Little Cat later knew about Lu Ye's background, but Lu Yi never knew about her. The familiar figure he saw at the crater of Blue Flame Mountain was Shen Little Cat. The two met in the Cloud River battlefield because of a spiritual land. They went through the secret realm of the realm of beasts together. After returning, the spring spirit of the spiritual land was plundered. Since then, they went their separate ways and never saw each other again. At that time, they were both in the Cloud River battlefield. Shen Little Cat's cultivation was several levels higher than Lu Ye's. Now that they were both in the true lake realm, Lu Ye's cultivation surpassed hers. You see through but don't say it out loud. It's boring if you call me that. On your side, I'm Yi Lu. Lu Yi responded indifferently, without much enthusiasm of an old acquaintance. Shen Little Cat didn't care. Her impression of Lu Yi was like this. You've got guts to contact me. Aren't you afraid that I'll bring a group of people to encircle you? You might not know how big the bounty on your head is in Mo Ridge. It's old news. I've been very honest recently and didn't do anything to the people of Mo Ridge. Is the bounty still there? He really didn't do anything recently. He just led the fire spirit race to Lonely Mountain City with Wuxia, but Wuxia was also involved in this. There's no reason to withdraw the bounty easily. Your head is precious. Then did you bring people here? Shen Little Cat curled her lips. You know the answer. Chapter 9:16. Lu Yi now had divine sense to rely on. Although the range of his perception was not very large, if he investigated carefully, the wind and grass within a mile could not be hidden from him. Shen Kitten did come alone this time and did not inform anyone. Speak, why are you looking for me? Shen Kitten asked. First of all, I want to thank you for last time. Stop. Shen Kitten took a few steps back like a cat whose tail was stepped on. She looked at Lu Yi vigilantly. What last time? There was no last time. Nothing happened last time. Their camps were hostile. Last time, a large number of cultivators gathered in Mo Ridge to besiege the Huitian Valley spiritual land. She could not bear it and told Lu Yi, which was already against her position. Although Lu Yi did not leave in advance because of her tip-off, and instead killed the Mo Ridge, Shen Kitten really did not want to mention the past. If this matter was known by others, she would be accused of colluding with the enemy. Lu Yi understood tacitly and kept his mouth shut. You called me out just for this? Shen Kitten looked at Lu Yi speechlessly. Of course not. Then what do you want to do? Let me say this first, I will not do anything that will harm Mo Ridge. Don't think you can force me to do anything. Public is public, private is private. We have to distinguish this point. Don't worry, I won't ask you to do anything difficult. I just want you to bring something to someone. Shen Kitten was puzzled. What do you want to bring? Who do you want to give it to? Lu Yi took out a voice transmission stone and threw it to Shen Kitten. Shen Kitten took it and looked at it curiously. However, there was no voice transmission stone in 9 states, so she could not tell what the thing in her hand was for. There is a person called Wuxia in your Lonely Mountain Pass. Bring this to him. Wuxia? Shen Kitten was a little surprised. You know him? Listening to Lu Ye's tone, not only did the two know each other, but they also seemed to have some secrets. Otherwise, why would he ask her to pass something to him? Shen Kitten's curiosity was burning. She looked at Lu Yi and asked, What happened between you two? Wuxia wouldn't be a spy for your Grand Heaven Alliance, right? Lu Yi said lightly, He is the core disciple of Sanluo Temple. Do you think such a person would be a spy of Grand Heaven Alliance? That's true. As for our relationship, if he's willing to tell you, you can ask him. Shen Kitten smiled. Are you so sure that I'll help you? I wasn't sure at first, but now that you're here, I'm sure. Shen Little Cat snorted, but before she could continue speaking, something flew towards her. She quickly took it and realized that it was a jade bottle. She didn't know what was inside. She couldn't help but snort coldly. In the end, I'm from 1Mo Ridge and you're from Hao Tian Alliance. We shouldn't meet in private. I won't help you. I have my bottom line. Don't even think about bribing me. Soul cleansing water, Lu Yi said softly. What? The bottle contains 3 drops of soul cleansing water. Take it as your reward for helping me this time. You only need to give that item to Yingwu Ji. You don't need to do anything else. Shen Little Cat looked at Lu Yi in shock. She had an expression that said, "Don't lie to me." Soul cleansing water was a treasure that even Spirit Sea Realm cultivators coveted. It was extremely rare. A true Lake Realm cultivator like her had no way to obtain it. She was now a true Lake Realm cultivator. Above that would be Spirit Sea. However, she knew her own aptitude. It would be very difficult for her to reach Spirit Sea in this lifetime. But if she had 3 drops of soul cleansing water in her hands, she suppressed the excitement in her heart and opened the bottle. Suddenly, a fragrance lingered at the tip of her nose. She felt refreshed. Shen Little Cat had never seen soul cleansing water before. She didn't know if the bottle contained soul cleansing water or not. But even if it wasn't soul cleansing water, it must be a treasure that was beneficial to the soul. She grabbed it and stuffed it into her plump chest. Bottom lines are meant to be broken. I'll definitely help you with this. Her face was full of righteousness. Ba-yi Chinese network, she sighed in her heart. It wasn't that she wasn't firm, but Lu Yi had given her too much. Very good. Lu Yi nodded in satisfaction. But there's one more problem. Shen Little Cat looked troubled. Speak. You know that Yingwu Ji. He comes from Sanluo Hall and is a very arrogant person. He was fine before, but I don't know what troubles him recently, but he has been pulling a long face all day. I met him a few days ago and greeted him, but he ignored me. It's not a problem for me to give him the item, but what if he doesn't want it? If he dares to refuse, you can say something to him. What? Eternal jade blood. Shen Little Cat looked at him meaningfully. And say that Yingwu Ji isn't a spy of your Grand Sky Alliance. She even had a secret signal. Lu Yi was too lazy to explain anything. After a while, Shen Little Cat left. Lu Yi also returned along the way. At the Lonely Mountain Pass, Shen Little Cat returned with ease. Following the memory in her mind, she walked toward a group of buildings in the southeast corner. Yingwu Ji's residence was there. Although her hair was long, she had her own judgment. No matter what Lu Yi asked her to do this time, it would harm the interests of 1Mo Ridge. No matter what the relationship between Lu Yi and Yingwu Ji was, she shouldn't pass on this message. Just as she said to Lu Yi, public was public, private was private. If she couldn't even distinguish this, then she shouldn't have cultivated for so many years. But the temptation of 3 drops of soul-cleansing water was too great. She could only agree. As for taking the things and not doing anything, it was impossible for her to keep the soul-cleansing water. No matter what, she had to be sure that Yingwu Ji wasn't a spy of Grand Sky Alliance. If the two of them only had a simple personal relationship, then it was nothing. As long as Yingwu Ji didn't do anything to harm the 1Mo Ridge camp, then everything was fine. After making up her mind, before she reached the place, she saw Yingwu Ji's figure in front of her. Shen Little Cat was overjoyed. She hurriedly greeted him and bowed. Senior Brother Ying. Yingwu Ji looked like he had a lot on his mind. He subconsciously responded and was about to pass by. But unexpectedly, Shen Little Cat turned and blocked his way. What's the matter? Yingwu Ji asked with a frown. If it was before, he wouldn't be so impatient with such a beautiful junior sister blocking his way. But recently, there were too many things on his mind. He wasn't in the mood to chat and joke with his beautiful junior sisters. Disregarding everything else, Many people had died during the siege of Lonely Mountain City. Not a single one of the Cloud River tier cultivators that he had brought out to collect earth fire had survived. Others didn't know how the fire spirit tribe came to be, but he knew very well. Not only was he involved, but Lu Ye was also involved. But this matter couldn't be known to others. Otherwise, his future would be bleak. Moreover, after knowing that Lu Yi was in the Ash Flame Mountain Pass opposite, Wuxia knew that he couldn't stay in this place for long. Otherwise, he would be harmed by that calamity sooner or later. Disregarding everything else, many people had died during the siege of Lonely Mountain City. Not a single one of the Cloud River tier cultivators that he had brought out to collect earth fire had survived. Others didn't know how the fire spirit tribe came to be, but he knew very well. Not only was he involved, but Lu Ye was also involved. But this matter couldn't be known to others. Otherwise, his future would be bleak. Brother Shen Zhangqing walked on the road. When he met people he was familiar with, he would greet them or nod. But no matter who it was, everyone's face was expressionless. It was as if they were indifferent to everything. To this, Shen Zhangqing was already used to it, because this was the Demon Suppression Department, an organization that maintained the stability of the Great Qin Empire. Their main duty was to kill demons and monsters. Of course, they also had other side jobs. Could be said that, in the Demon Suppression Department, everyone's hands were stained with blood. When a person was used to life and death, then they would become indifferent to many things. When he first came to this world, Shen Zhangqing was a little uncomfortable. But as time passed, he got used to it. The Demon Suppression Department was very big. Those who could stay in the Demon Suppression Department were all powerful experts or people who had the potential to become experts. Shen Zhangqing belonged to the latter. Among them, the Demon Suppression Department was divided into two professions. One was the Guardian, the other was the Demon Exorcist. Anyone who entered the Demon Suppression Department would start from the lowest level, the Demon Exorcist. Then they would advance step by step, and finally have a chance to become a Guardian. Shen Zhangqing's previous life was a trainee demon exorcist in the Demon Suppression Department. He was also the lowest level demon exorcist. He had the memories of his previous life. He was also very familiar with the environment of the Demon Suppression Department. It didn't take long for Shen Zhangqing to stop in front of a pavilion. Different from the other places in the Demon Suppression Department that were filled with killing intent, this pavilion was like a crane in a flock of chickens. In the Demon Suppression Department that was filled with blood, it presented a different kind of tranquility. At this time, the pavilion's door was open. Occasionally, people would enter and leave. Shen Zhangqing only hesitated for a moment before stepping in. Entering the pavilion, the environment suddenly changed. A wave of ink mixed with a faint smell of blood hit his face. His brows instinctively furrowed, but they quickly smoothed out. The smell of blood on everyone in the Demon Suppression Department was almost impossible to wash clean. Chapter 9:17. After swearing the divine secret oath, Wuxia proved his innocence. He turned around and stared at Shen Kitten. "It's your turn." Shen Kitten felt a headache coming on. She also swore the divine secret oath. After a while, the two of them looked at each other. They were both sure that they were not spies of the Haotian Alliance. They just had some contact with Lu Yi for some reason. Wuxia's face was cold. "I don't care what kind of contact you have with that person. But since you call me senior brother, I have to advise you not to contact him in any way. If you get involved with that person, you won't have a good ending." He looked like an experienced person who had been poisoned. This made Shen Kitten even more curious. "What happened between you and him?" "Don't ask. I don't want to say. That's all I have to say. You're on your own. Please." He was going to ask her to leave. Shen Kitten sighed. She could only say slowly, "Eternal jade blood. Elixir heart for 10,000 years. Wuxia said subconsciously. In the room, the two of them looked at each other. It was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. "Senior brothering this thing?" Shen Kitten broke the awkward silence. "Give it to me." Wuxia reached out his hand as if he had accepted his fate. That guy Luya was clearly warning him. The attack in defense of Lonely Mountain City last time was his sore point. He couldn't easily tell others about it. That guy's attitude was already very obvious. If he dared to refuse, he would definitely leak the matter to the Wanmo Ridge. Then, his life would not be easy. No matter what, the Wanmo Ridge suffered a lot in that battle. After receiving the voice transmission stone, Ingwuji's hand trembled as if it was scalded. Only then did he look at Shin Kitten seriously. You'd better forget about what happened today. Also, remember my advice. Don't contact that person in any way in the future. Otherwise what? Shin Kitten looked at him curiously. Ingwuji's interest waned. He waved his hand and had no desire to speak. What else could he do? He would end up like that. Shin Kitten left. He didn't know if she had listened to his warning. Holding the voice transmission stone in his hand, Ingwuji's expression changed. He thought that as long as he hid in Lonely Mountain City, Luya wouldn't be able to get involved with him. Who knew that he had such a method to ask someone to pass a voice transmission stone to him? After sitting for a long time, Ingwuji gritted his teeth, poured his spirit energy into the sound transmission stone, and asked through gritted teeth, "What are you doing?" Outside Ash Flame Mountain Pass, Lu Yi, who was patrolling the area with Yi and Hupa, suddenly had a thought. She took out another sound transmission stone and secretly sighed at how efficient Shen Little Cat was. They had only been apart for half a day and the item was already in Ingwuji's hands. He really didn't trust the wrong person. 2 days later, 300 li northeast of Lonely Mountain City. And don't be late. When Ingwuji wanted to contact Lu Yi again, he found that the resonance of the voice transmission stone in his hand had disappeared. In other words, the other voice transmission stone had been put into Lu Ye's storage bag. Venting his anger, Ingwuji roared at the voice transmission stone and stood up with an ashen face. Lu Ye, that bastard, was going too far. He inexplicably gave him a time and a place. Did he really think that Ingwuji would be so easily bullied? I won't go this time. What can you do to me? Inside Lonely Mountain, after Lu Yi contacted Ingwuji, he went to Thought Moon Immortal's bamboo house. As for Ingwuji's reaction, it was easy to guess. He wasn't worried that Ingwuji wouldn't go. He now had something on Ingwuji. If Ingwuji didn't go, he would immediately go to Lonely Mountain City in the same disguise as last time and take off his mask in front of all the cultivators of Myriad Demon Ridge. At that time, Ingwuji would be in trouble. Sir, this humble servant has something to report. Lu Yi bowed at the foot of the bamboo house. What is it? Thought Moon Immortal's voice came from behind. Lu Yi turned his head and saw Thought Moon Immortal sitting on a tree trunk, looking down at him. The corners of his eyes twitched. He realized that this mountain pass master didn't live in the bamboo house most of the time. Perhaps she was used to living in the open for so many years and would often appear on the trunk of a large tree. Sir, this humble servant has found a guide to Li Plains. Perhaps he will be of some use. A guide? Thought Moon Immortal didn't understand. The journey to Li Plains is not short. Even if Sir has the means to conceal himself, we are going deep into the heart of Myriad Demon Ridge. There is a great risk of being exposed. But what if we have someone from Myriad Demon Ridge accompanying us? If we are interrogated, let him deal with it. Sir and I will be able to easily slip through. Thought Moon Immortal immediately understood what he meant. Originally, if she wanted to take Lu Yi to Li Plains, it would be impossible to fly there openly. This was because Li Plains was on the border between the War Province and the Cloud Province. As a famous divine sea cultivator, if she really flew there, her whereabouts would be easily exposed. Therefore, if she really wanted to go to Li Plains, she could only rely on the ability of a ghost cultivator to sneak there. But in this way, her speed would not be fast. But if she really did as Lu Yi said and found a cultivator from Myriad Demon Ridge to accompany them, things would be much easier if they were interrogated and let the other party deal with it. At the very least, she could fly there openly without worrying too much. But, you can find such a person? I already have a candidate and have an agreement with him. Thought Moon Immortal was surprised. She didn't know that Lu Yi had such an ability. Is he a trustworthy person? Thought Moon Immortal asked worriedly. But I have some information on him. I don't think he will dare to have any bad intentions. That's good, but you still have to be careful. When the time comes, I will handle everything. Sir, you only need to lead the way. You don't have to communicate with him. This way, it would be convenient for Thought Moon Immortal to hide. Thought Moon Immortal nodded. Even so, there's still a problem. Although I can wear a mask to hide my appearance, it's not easy to hide my cultivation. The person you are looking for might be able to detect my identity because of this. You don't have to worry about that. Sir, please move. Lu Yi gestured with his hand. Thought Moon Immortal understood and lightly floated down from the tree trunk. Lu Yi raised his hand and stepped forward. Excuse me. Under Thought Moon Immortal's surprised gaze, he pressed a hand on her lower abdomen. In the next instant, spiritual energy surged. Thought Moon Immortal clearly sensed that there was an additional spirit pattern on her body. After seeing Lu Yi use the Rainbow Phoenix's flight together, Thought Moon Immortal couldn't help but be curious about the use of this spirit pattern. What is this? Imitation of power. Lu Yi explained. Do you still remember when Yi and Hupa came from afar with the pressure of a Spirit Sea Realm cultivator and scared off one Zhanggang and the others? That is the effect of this spirit pattern. This spirit pattern can not only simulate the pressure of someone with a higher cultivation, but also the spiritual energy fluctuations of someone with a lower cultivation. Sir, you can try it out, but please be careful when you push your spiritual energy. After all, this is a spirit pattern I added to your body. If the spiritual energy fluctuations are too great, there is a possibility that the spirit pattern will fail. At that time, Sir's true cultivation will be exposed. Thought Moon Immortal understood and tried to stimulate the effect of the spirit pattern. The aura on her body began to change constantly. As a Spirit Sea Realm cultivator, she quickly figured out the mysteries of the spirit pattern. A moment later, the spiritual energy fluctuations on her body stopped at the level of a first-order true Lake Realm cultivator, even lower than Lu Ye's current level. This was already the limit. It would be impossible for her to go any lower. With a push of her spiritual energy, she dispersed the spirit pattern. Thought Moon Immortal smiled at Lu Yi. You are very thorough. I'll do as you say. This smile made the world lose its color. It was also the first time Lu Yi saw Thought Moon Immortal smile. His gaze lingered on her face for a moment before he looked away. As long as Sir is satisfied. If there are no other instructions, this humble one will take his leave. Looking at Lu Ye's departing back, Thought Moon Immortal's long-lost figure once again appeared in her mind. In the end, they were not the same. That person did things as he pleased, but Lu Yi had a feeling of planning before taking action. She raised her hand and touched the place on her lower abdomen where she had just been touched. Thought Moon Immortal had a complicated look on her face. Speaking of which, in all these years, no one had ever done such a rude thing to her. If it had been someone else, she would have slapped them. How could a woman's lower abdomen be touched so casually? Even if it was through her clothes, it was still not allowed. But the two of them had already done some intimate things before. During the battle against one Zhanggang, their fingers were still interlocked. Touching her lower abdomen didn't seem to be a big deal. In the future, there would definitely be times when she needed to borrow strength. In these 2 days, Lu Yi did not cultivate. Instead, he spent most of his time imprinting the origin of the dragon soaring realm. Occasionally, he would enter the Mirage realm to hone his blade skills. 2 days later, Lu Yi had just walked out of the bamboo building when Thought Moon Immortal appeared in front of him. They looked at each other and Thought Moon Immortal nodded slightly. She urged her spiritual energy to wrap around Lu Yi and soared into the sky. Sir, if we leave like this, there will be no one left to guard the mountain pass. Is it okay? Lu Yi asked. If Wan Mo Ridge wants Ashen Flame Mountain Pass, just take it. White Jade City and Clear Moon Cave can't wait for Wan Mo Ridge to take action. This way, they will have a reason to send troops. White Jade City Pass and Clear Moon Cave Pass were the left and right neighbors of Ashen Flame Mountain Pass. The former, like Ashen Flame Mountain Pass, belonged to Great Moon Pass, while the latter belonged to Small Moon Pass. Lu Yi had previously received a task to buy wine and had even made a trip to White Jade City Pass. However, he had come and gone in a hurry and did not have the chance to experience the local customs there. Over the years, the front line where the three major mountain passes were located did not have a fierce battle. The cultivators of White Jade City Pass and Clear Moon Cave Pass did not have the opportunity to gain military merits. Therefore, if Lonely Mountain City really dared to take action, the cultivators of these two major mountain passes would definitely be overjoyed. Chapter 9:18. Speaking of which, before Lu Yi came to Ashen Flame Mountain Pass, there would often be no one guarding it. Because Thought Moon Immortal couldn't stay here forever. She would go to Lonely Mountain City every few days, and at that time, Ashen Flame Mountain Pass was also empty. So, no matter what, the possibility of Ashen Flame Mountain Pass being captured was not high, unless Myriad Demon Ridge was preparing to launch a large-scale attack. Lu Yi hurried along. Half an hour later, Lu Yi focused his vision and looked ahead. "Sir, we're almost there. I'll contact that person later, so doesn't need to say anything." Thought Moon Immortal nodded and flew down. Lu Yi left a pseudo-prestige spirit inscription on her body to conceal her Spirit Sea Realm aura. "Sir, do you have the face to agree?" Lu Yi asked. Aura could be concealed with pseudo-prestige, but appearance could only be concealed with a face mask. Of course, it would be better if Thought Moon Immortal had a treasure that could disguise her appearance. "I do." Thought Moon Immortal nodded. How could one not have a face mask when traveling outside? It was a must-have for sneaking around. In the Heavenly Secret Treasure House and Heavenly Secret Yen, the best-selling items were spirit pills and spirit artifacts. In addition, the sales of face masks were also high all year round. "Then Sir will act according to the circumstances," Lu Yi instructed before turning around and heading to the agreed-upon location. After Lu Yi left, Thought Moon Immortal flipped her palm and a face mask that looked quite old appeared on her hand. Looking at this face mask, some distant memories inevitably appeared in her mind. She had once worn this face mask and done many things that no one knew about. As if recalling something interesting, the corners of Thought Moon Immortal's mouth curled up slightly. 300 kilometers northeast of Lonely Mountain City. Lu Yi, who was wearing a face mask, appeared here without any intention of deliberately hiding his whereabouts. However, in terms of cultivation, he revealed that he was only a first-order true Lake Realm cultivator. Obviously, he had also activated the pseudo-prestige spirit inscription. Although this spirit inscription couldn't provide any help in battle, it had one advantage, which was that it didn't consume much spirit chi to maintain it. Lu Yi only disguised his cultivation from third order to first order, so the cost of maintaining this spirit inscription was nothing to him. The main reason was that breaking through two minor realms in such a short period of time was a bit too shocking. In order to avoid scaring Ingwu Ji, it was best to restrain himself a bit. The terrain of this place was a forest, and it was not dense. Lu Yi flashed and stood on the crown of a large tree. His gaze swept around, but he did not find Ingwu Ji's figure. In such a situation, either Ingwu Ji didn't come, or he came and hid. Lu Yi felt that it was most likely the latter. He stealthily activated his divine sense and scanned his surroundings. However, he did not discover anything. He wasn't in a hurry, so he just stood there and waited. If Ingwu Ji really came, then he must have discovered him. Sure enough, after about the time it would take to make a cup of tea, when Lu Yi once again used his divine sense to investigate, he found that there was a new life force about 1,000 meters away from him. Ingwu Ji had suffered a big loss under Lu Ye's hands before. So, he knew that Lu Ye's perception was much stronger compared to ordinary cultivators. As such, he did not dare to get too close to Lu Yi. In his opinion, a distance of 1,000 feet was already very safe. There was no way that Lu Ye could discover him. He did not even dare to look at Lu Ye's location, lest his gaze arouse Lu Ye's vigilance, so he just lay there quietly. He had thought of completely ignoring Lu Yi because he knew that no matter what Lu Yi wanted to do, nothing good would come out of it. However, he was also afraid that Lu Yi would run to Lonely Mountain City and spread rumors. If that happened, he would not be able to clear his name. It was with such complicated feelings that he rushed here at the appointed time. He had already made up his mind that no matter what Wuxia wanted him to do, he would decisively refuse and draw a clear line between them, never coming into contact with him again. After making up his mind, Wuji immediately relaxed. However, he suddenly saw Lu Ye's figure move, flying towards him, and then he landed 10 meters away from him, his gaze fixed in his direction. Exposed? Impossible. Wuji's heart was in turmoil. Although he did not want to admit it, the place Lu Yi was looking at was indeed where he was hiding. How could he have been exposed? He had not been exposed. This was just a coincidence. Just as he was thinking this, Lu Yi suddenly said, "Let's go." After 3 breaths, Wuji undid his concealment and revealed himself, saying decisively, "Lu Ye, I'm not here to promise you anything, I'm just here to tell you something. You won't have to do anything difficult on this trip. This is for you. You might need it in the future." "What is it?" Wuji took it and asked subconsciously, but he quickly reacted, "I'm talking to you, did you hear me? 3 drops of soul-cleansing water." Wuji instantly fell silent, almost suspecting that he had misheard. After meeting Lu Ye's serious gaze and confirming that he had not misheard, he hurriedly opened the jade bottle Lu Yi had just given him and carefully examined it. His face was filled with shock. It really was soul-cleansing water. Although he had never seen real soul-cleansing water, he had at least heard of this divine item from his elders. He had heard all kinds of rumors, and the item in his hand was perfectly matched. "Take it as your reward for this trip," Lu Yi added. Just as he said to Chen Wudong, "If you want a horse to run, you have to feed it." He could easily guess what kind of attitude Wuji had towards him. If he wanted Wuji to sincerely work for him, a simple threat would be meaningless. A stick and a date would be the best strategy. He could give Shin Kitten 3 drops of soul-cleansing water, so what was Wuji worth? After a moment of silence, Wuji had already made a decision. He put away the soul-cleansing water in the jade bottle and waved to Lu Yi. "Let's go." There was Shin Kitten before, and now there was Wuji. Soul-cleansing water was indeed a treasure to buy people's hearts. Lu Yi, however, stood still. "Is there anything else?" Wuji asked, puzzled. "Don't you need to take a leave?" Lu Yi asked. Wuji's expression was embarrassed. "I've already taken a leave. But let me make it clear to you first. This time, I don't care what you do, but if you cross my bottom line, I will withdraw at any time. Also, I'm not helping you this time because of the soul-cleansing water. No matter what, you saved my life on the unparalleled continent more than once. Although I, Wuji, am a ghost cultivator, I am a person who knows how to repay kindness." He spoke with a strong sense of righteousness. Lu Yi couldn't help but nod. Then he raised his hand and tapped on his battlefield imprint. With a flick of his finger, a dot of blue light floated in Wuji's direction. Wuji immediately covered his battlefield imprint vigilantly. "What do you want to do?" "Add an imprint so that you can continue to repay kindness in the future." Wuji's expression turned bitter. Previously, the two of them didn't add each other's imprint, so when Lu Yi wanted to find him, he had to let Shin Kitten be the middleman to pass the message. But if he added an imprint, then Lu Yi could find him anytime and anywhere in the future. This kind of thing, Wuji was about to refuse when he saw Lu Ye's fingers rubbing the hilt of his sword. "This guy wants to stab me again." Since he was inferior, Wuji could only let go of the back of his hand and let the dot of blue light float into his battlefield imprint. Lu Yi tried to send a message to Wuji. After confirming that the imprint was successfully added, he called out, "Let's go." Wuji followed with heavy steps. A moment later, Wuji, who was following beside Lu Yi, looked ahead and saw Thought Moon Immortal wearing a mask. He couldn't help but frown. Why is there someone else? Who is she? Following Lu Yi wasn't something to be proud of. If possible, he didn't want a third person to know. Who would have thought that there was someone else waiting here, and it was a female cultivator? This question stumped Lu Yi. He hadn't thought about how to address Thought Moon Immortal in front of Wuji or how to introduce the relationship between the two. Just as he was about to warn Wuji not to ask what he shouldn't ask, Thought Moon Immortal had already taken the initiative to greet him. She called out crisply, "Senior apprentice brother." Lu Ye's body swayed and he almost fell from the sky. Ing Wuji quickly caught him. He was puzzled. "What's wrong with you?" "There's been some hiccups in my cultivation recently," Lu Yi explained. "Senior apprentice brother?" He didn't expect Thought Moon Immortal to address him like that. And that tone, it wasn't the tone that Thought Moon Immortal should have. After so many days in Ash Flame Mountain Pass, his impression of Thought Moon Immortal had always been cold as ice and a woman of few words. She shouldn't be calling someone senior apprentice brother in such a crisp, sweet, and lively manner. When she got closer, her fragrance assailed his nostrils. Thought Moon Immortal's gaze swept past Ing Wuji. She said, "Senior apprentice brother, this is the powerful friend you mentioned. As expected, his temperament is extraordinary." "That's him." Lu Yi was extremely uncomfortable. If he hadn't been sure that Thought Moon Immortal would be waiting for him here, he would have doubted whether this person before him was really Thought Moon Immortal. Not only did her tone turn devilishly sweet, but Lu Yi could also see the curved eyes under Thought Moon Immortal's mask. She was even smiling as she spoke. Ing Wuji was flattered. He didn't expect Lu Yi to think of him like this behind his back. He immediately straightened his chest, cupped his fists, and said, "Ing Wuji." Although he couldn't see the appearance of the woman before him, just from her voice and figure, she was definitely a rare beauty. The praise of a beauty always made people happy. Some of his dissatisfaction with Lu Yi also dissipated instantly. However, this woman looked very intimate with Lu Yi. Their relationship should be quite close. She might even be Lu Yi's woman, the so-called friend's wife. Also, he and Lu Yi didn't seem to have reached the level of friends. But no matter what, he didn't have any inappropriate thoughts about the woman before him. After all, she was from Grand Heaven Alliance. "Greetings, Senior Apprentice Brother Ing." Thought Moon Immortal bowed. "Senior Apprentice Brother Ing, just call me Water Immortal." "Junior Apprentice Sister Water Immortal, you really live up to your name." He turned to look at Lu Yi. "Brother, you're really lucky." Lu Yi forced a smile that was uglier than crying. Chapter 9:19. "Lu Yi, you have to disguise yourself a little. After all, your appearance is famous here. It's best if you pretend to be Fierce Bull." Ing Wuji reminded. Nian Yuxian couldn't help but be suspicious. "Fierce Bull?" Lu Yi explained, "I have another identity." Nian Yu Immortal understood and smiled. Who didn't have another identity outside? Just like her name, Nian Yuxian, Lu Yi also had a time when he would turn into Fierce Bull. Following the advice, he put away the Pan Mountain saber. However, with the Scarlet Dragon battle robe and Lu Yi's figure, he didn't look like a spell cultivator, but it was fine. Not all spell cultivators in the 9 provinces had large sleeves and wide robes. There were always some who wore clothes similar to the Scarlet Dragon battle robe. There wasn't much to prepare. Ing Wuji asked, "Where are we going?" He had already thought it through. Since he couldn't resist, he could only cooperate. Moreover, he had already obtained 3 drops of soul-cleansing water. "Li Plains." Lu Yi reported the destination. Ing Wuji frowned. "That's not near." He was secretly surprised. These two were too bold. They actually wanted to go deep into Li Plains. No wonder they needed to rope him in. Clearly, they wanted to use his identity as a Wanmo Ridge cultivator to clear the obstacles on their way. The Li Plains was vast and boundless, but because the environment wasn't very good, there weren't any sects from the myriad Devil Ridge that had established themselves there. From the looks of it, Lu Yi wasn't going to cause trouble for anyone. This made things much easier. "Then let's go. But first, you two have to listen to my instructions. Don't do anything extreme. Otherwise, I'll risk my life to leak your information." "Don't worry, we should be the ones worrying." Ing Wuji thought about it and agreed. He took out his flying spirit artifact and landed on it. Lu Yi also took out his spirit artifact. However, before he could fly up, Nian Yuxian had already sat on it. Lu Yi was startled. Considering that Nian Yuxian wasn't in a good condition to use her spirit energy, he let her be. After a while, The two spirit artifacts turned into streams of light and soared into the sky, flying straight in the direction of Li Plains. After traveling for a few hundred miles, they were already considered to have entered the sphere of influence of Wanmo Ridge. Soon, they encountered a patrol team from Wanmo Ridge. "I'll talk to the patrol of Lonely Mountain City. Don't do anything rash," Ingwu said in a low voice and stepped forward. Lu Yi controlled the spirit boat to stop where it was, his fingers gently stroking the boat. Seated in front of him, Thought Moon Immortal's beautiful eyes were also staring at Ingwuji's back. The moment she sensed that something was wrong, she would strike like lightning. Not far ahead, Ingwu exchanged a few words with the patrol team, and the patrol team left. "Let's go," Ingwu said. Lu Yi steered the spirit boat to follow. "Continue forward." Along the way, they occasionally encountered teams patrolling the nearby passes, but Ingwu was there to take care of them. Their journey was smooth. "This guide is rather reliable. Senior apprentice brother, do you have any information on him?" Thought Moon Immortal turned to look at Lu Yi. Because she was sitting and Lu Yi was standing, Thought Moon Immortal's body was tilted and her head was raised. Coupled with her crisp words, she looked rather cute and playful. Lu Yi, on the other hand, felt a prickling sensation on his back. He said in a low voice, "Milord, what's wrong with this woman? Why does it feel like she's a completely different person when she's wearing a mask?" "What are you talking about?" The guide this time is Senior Apprentice Brother Fierce Bull. "I am Junior Apprentice Sister Water Immortal." Under the mask, Thought Moon Immortal glared at Lu Yi. "Extremely charming. If you say so, then so be it." Lu Yi was helpless. Ingwu was so cooperative. Firstly, it was because of the 3 drops of soul-cleansing water. Secondly, as he said, Lu Yi had saved his life twice in the Wushuang continent. Ingwu came from a top sect after all. How could he be an ungrateful person? But strictly speaking, he judged that Lu Yi probably wouldn't do anything to harm the Myriad Devil Ridge. Otherwise, he wouldn't be so cooperative. After passing through a few checkpoints, the number of Myriad Devil Ridge patrol teams decreased. After all, they were already deep into the Myriad Devil Ridge's territory in the War Province. As night fell, the 3 of them found a place to rest. Ingwu started a fire and roasted the beast meat. Lu Yi set up an alert and defensive array nearby. When he returned, he found that Thought Moon Immortal had already started eating. Because it wasn't convenient to take off the mask, she only lifted it slightly when eating. But the speed of eating was not slow at all. Furthermore, he didn't know what Ingwu had said to her, but she was actually laughing non-stop. When Lu Yi saw this scene, he couldn't help but be on tenterhooks for Ingwu. He was afraid that he would say something he shouldn't and be killed by Thought Moon Immortal. "Senior Martial Brother, here you go." Thought Moon Immortal handed a piece of roasted beast meat to Lu Yi. Although he had heard her call him Senior Martial Brother many times along the way and told him to get used to her disguise, Lu Yi still stiffened when he took the meat. "Senior Martial Brother, so many interesting things have happened between the 2 of you. Why haven't I heard you mention it before?" Ingwu said angrily, "How is it interesting? It's obvious that he's been bullying me." "Then why didn't you resist?" Thought Moon Immortal tilted her head and looked at Ingwu innocently. Ingwu looked embarrassed. "I can't beat him." Thought Moon Immortal patted Ingwuji's shoulder and said earnestly, "Then you have to cultivate well. Try to defeat my senior martial brother as soon as possible and vent your grievances." Ingwu was very touched. He finally met someone who understood his difficulties. And it was a female cultivator. Damn it, why does Lu Yi get all the good things in the world? Why don't I have such an understanding junior martial sister? At night, the 2 of them took turns keeping watch. They would continue their journey at dawn. With 10,000 Demon Ridge's guidance and Ingwu, a core disciple of the Sanluo Hall in the War Province, the journey was peaceful. Occasionally, they would encounter 1 or 2 Wanmo Ridge cultivators flying around, but Ingwu would deal with them. This method was much more efficient and safer than Thought Moon Immortal's original plan of sneaking in with Lu Yi. Time flew by and 3 days later, a vast plain appeared in their field of vision. They had arrived at Li Plains. the entire Li Plains was extremely large. However, because it was barren and had no minerals or other cultivation resources, no sect had been established here since ancient times. From the 10,000 Demon Ridges map, the area occupied by Li Plains was almost 10% of the Wanmo Ridges territory in the War Province. The wind blew and the grass fell. The three of them jumped and looked ahead. The atmosphere was inexplicably heavy. Wuxia said, "I'm guessing that you won't allow me to leave now. Keep up." Lu Yi could not be bothered to talk nonsense with him. She steered the spirit boat forward. Wuxia sighed and could only accept his fate. Although he had arrived at Li Plains, he also knew that Lu Yi would not let him go so easily. He also did not know what Lu Yi and his junior sister wanted to do, but if he let him go at this time, there would be the risk of information being leaked. Moreover, they might encounter more Wanmo Ridge cultivators on the road ahead. At that time, there would be trouble for him to deal with. As they continued forward, Lu Yi soon discovered some abnormalities below. She frowned and said, "There was a great battle here." Along the way, there were many traces of a great battle. Moreover, those traces seemed to have been left behind for quite some time. The traces of a great battle covered an extremely large area. If there really was a great battle here, it definitely would not have been a small one. "I've never heard of the Great Battle of Li Plains 38 years ago." Wuxia glanced curiously at Lu Yi, as if wondering why he had never heard of it. Lu Yi shook his head. "That shouldn't be the case. You're a disciple of the Blue Blood sect, so how could you not know? What does that have to do with whether or not I'm a disciple of the Blue Blood sect?" Lu Yi frowned, faintly having some guesses. "Because the Plains of Li is the burial place of your famous eldest senior brother." Back then, millions of cultivators from the two great factions fought a bitter battle here. Wuxia spoke tirelessly. Lu Yi listened quietly, looking down at Thought Moon Immortal sitting in front of him. No wonder Thought Moon Immortal had been so quiet ever since they entered Li Plains. "You should know that the War Province originally fell completely under the control of your Grand Heaven Alliance, but after the Great Battle of Li Plains, half of the War Province fell into the hands of the 10,000 Devil Ridge. If it weren't for your Grand Heaven Alliance establishing a defensive line in time, the entire War Province would have fallen under the control of the Myriad Devil Ridge. Your Grand Heaven Alliance would have nothing to do with it." This was the first time Lu Yi had heard of this. No one had ever mentioned this to him before. The main reason was that the only people above him in the Blue Blood sect were the sect leader and senior martial sister Shui Yuan. Normally, aside from cultivating, Lu Yi spent most of his time not in the Blue Blood sect. When he occasionally returned, the sect leader was always elusive. Shui Yuan only cared about whether he was doing well and whether he had encountered any danger. Who would tell him these things that had already passed? According to Shui Yuan, there was a relationship between Thought Moon Immortal and his eldest senior martial brother. It seemed that Thought Moon Immortal had once served under his eldest senior martial brother. If that was the case, Thought Moon Immortal must have been present during the Great Battle of Li Plains. Now that she was revisiting this place, she clearly remembered some things. Lu Yi had never asked why she had come to Li Plains this time, but now it seemed that it was very likely related to what had happened in the past. Could it be that his eldest senior martial brother had left some treasure behind in Li Plains? That shouldn't be the case. If that was the case, Thought Moon Immortal would have taken it away long ago. Why would she wait until today? She wanted to use his strength to achieve her goal, which meant that she couldn't do it herself. There had to be some risk involved. Fortunately, he had already entered Li Plains, so he would soon know what Thought Moon Immortal wanted to do. Although she had remained silent, she was secretly urging her spiritual chi to change the direction of the spirit boat at a critical moment. She was clearly looking for something. For hours later, a black line visible to the naked eye suddenly appeared in front of him. As he got closer, Lu Yi discovered that it wasn't a black line at all, but a bottomless chasm that stretched across Li Plains. It was like a natural chasm that divided Li Plains into two. Chapter 920. The One-Line Sky. Looking at the bottomless ravine, Wuxia raised his eyebrows. "Is this your destination? Is there a problem?" Lu Yi asked. Although he wasn't sure if this place was their destination, it seemed very likely that it was. No problem. Ingwu shook his head. The one-line sky of Liyuan was very famous in the myriad Devil Ridge. No one knew how this huge and continuous ravine had appeared, but it contained many opportunities. Some people had found treasures left behind by powerful seniors in this ravine, and some people had found extremely precious minerals and collected precious spirit flowers and herbs. However, no matter how many opportunities there were, after so many years, they had all been found. The one-line sky of today was just a bit special, and no one had come here to waste time. The spirit boat flew along the edge of the one-line sky, and when it reached a certain place, the silent thought moon Immortal suddenly said, "Go down." Lu Yi hurriedly changed direction and steered the spirit boat into the depths of the one-line sky, with Ingwu following closely behind. At this time, he was also very curious about Lu Ye's purpose. Even if he was driven away now, he didn't want to leave. He couldn't figure out why Lu Yi had come here with such a clear purpose. They continued to go down, and after an unknown period of time, when they looked up again, there was only a ray of light above their heads. It was truly the one-line sky. At this point, Lu Yi could already vaguely sense the existence of a magnetic field, because his spirit energy was faintly being suppressed. The magnetic field wasn't something that only existed in magnetic but also deep underground, and it was very common. To Yi, the magnetic field was extremely frightening, so even if she had the ability to burrow through the ground, she wouldn't easily burrow too deep underground. If she was disturbed by the magnetic field, her spirit body would inevitably be damaged, and if the situation was serious, it was very likely that she wouldn't be able to maintain her spirit body and would disappear. Therefore, when burrowing through the ground, Yi was always a bit careful. The light around them was dim, but it didn't affect their vision. It wasn't until a certain moment that Thought Moon Immortal suddenly jumped up from the spirit boat and landed in a concave stone pit. Lu Yi and Ingwu followed closely behind. Ingwu frowned because he suddenly realized that Lu Yi didn't seem to be in charge of this trip, but the female cultivator called Shui Xian. Standing in the sunken stone pit, Thought Moon Immortal raised her hand to touch the stone beside her. Looking at the back of the woman in front of him, Ingwu suddenly felt that she looked familiar, as if he had seen her somewhere before. He couldn't help but recall the scene he saw from afar on the day of the siege of Lonely Mountain City. That was the battlefield of the Spirit Sea Realm warriors. The figure that escaped from the Lonely Mountain City that day was so similar to the one in front of him. A terrifying thought popped up in his mind. He involuntarily gulped and stiffly turned his head, just in time to see Lu Yi looking at him meaningfully, her eyes full of mischief and ridicule. Ingwu instantly understood. He wasn't wrong. The woman in front of him wasn't Junior's sister water deity. She really was that person. She was the woman that even a Spirit Sea Realm cultivator like the Mountain Pass Master was afraid of. Thinking back on everything that had happened along the way, Ingwu was on the verge of tears. He thought that nothing good would come out of getting involved with Lu Yi. Who would have thought that he would be involved in even bigger trouble? His legs and stomach were shaking, and his entire body was weak. Ingwu wished he could pass out right now, but what made him angry was that the feeling of terror lingered around him, making him more awake than ever. Thought Moon Immortal removed her disguise and even took off her mask. She pretended before because she was afraid that her identity would be exposed, and also because she didn't want to put too much pressure on Ingwu. Now that they were here, there was no need to keep up the disguise. No matter what, she would be exposed later. Lu Yi silently took off her mask as well. She took out the mountain pan saber from her storage space and held it in her hand. Don't do anything rash. Ingwu was shocked. For some reason, he had a feeling that Lu Yi was going to kill him. Lu Yi ignored him and only asked Thought Moon Immortal, "My lord, what should we do?" Thought Moon Immortal didn't even turn her head. She said indifferently, "Don't leave me by more than 10 feet." The conversation between the two was unclear, but Ingwu understood. He hurriedly nodded his head like a chicken pecking rice. "I definitely won't leave. Senior, don't worry. This junior still cherishes his own life." He turned his head and looked at Lu Yi with resentment. his expression seemed to say, "You've screwed me over." As expected, those 3 drops of soul-cleansing water were not so easy to obtain. If he had known that there would be such a divine ocean realm cultivator on this trip, forget 3 drops, even 30 drops, he would have considered it. But no matter what, at this moment, Wuxia felt like he was sitting on pins and needles. In front of him, Thought Moon Immortal had already activated her spiritual power. She raised her hand, and the array flags hidden in the surroundings were drawn into her hand. Shockingly, she had already set up many formations here. The arrays set up by a divine ocean realm cultivator were naturally exquisite. This was also the reason why this place had remained a secret for so many years. Although there were not many people who came to One Line Sky to search for treasures and opportunities, there were still people who came. If there was no array concealment, the opportunities here would not have been preserved until now. When Thought Moon Immortal unlocked the array, the stone wall in front of her suddenly trembled. Then, a large stone wall slid to the side, revealing an inner passage. Thought Moon Immortal turned her head and stretched out her hand to Wuxia. Wuxia understood. When she unsheathed her Panshan saber, the saber light flashed, and blood spurted out from her palms at the same time. Wuxia was dumbfounded. He didn't know what Wuxia was trying to do. But something that made him even more dumbfounded soon happened. Because he saw that Wuxia actually grabbed Thought Moon Immortal's jade hand. Not only did she grab it, but their fingers were also intertwined. At this moment, Wuxia's eyes almost popped out. Deep in his heart, he admired Wuxia to the extreme. The woman in front of him was an existence that even Wan Zhonggang had a headache and was afraid of. Her appearance was even more beautiful. It could be said that such a woman was rare in the entire 9 regions. The number of people who could match her could be counted on one's fingers. "Milord, please do as you wish. I will take care of myself." "How about letting him explore the way ahead?" Wuxia suggested again. Wuxia recovered from his stupor and flew into a rage. "Are you still human?" Only God knew what kind of danger was ahead. How could it be an ordinary danger that could make a powerhouse like Thought Moon Immortal feel as if she was facing a great enemy? Wuxia, this guy was simply bad. He actually wanted to explore the way himself. Fortunately, Thought Moon Immortal quickly said, "He can't. With his cultivation base, he can't hold on for more than 3 breaths." Wuxia immediately breathed a sigh of relief. Being weak also had its advantages. "Let's go." Thought Moon Immortal took a deep breath, and her plump chest rose high. Then, her figure swayed and stepped into the dark passage. Wuxia completely relaxed his body and mind, letting her do whatever she wanted. Naturally, he was also taken in. At the same time, he didn't forget to tell Wuxia, "Keep up." Wuxia cursed Wuxia in his heart, but he could only obediently do as he was told. At this time, he didn't dare to act rashly. Thought Moon Immortal was right in front of him. Even if he wanted to escape, he had to have the ability to do so. However, Wuxia was holding the hand of a woman who even ordinary Divine Sea Realm cultivators would feel ashamed of their inferiority. How audacious! What puzzled Wuxia even more was that Thought Moon Immortal seemed to be the one who took the initiative. Were all the seniors nowadays so bold? These two, what was their relationship? Before he could figure it out, Thought Moon Immortal lifted their hands, turned around, and pressed herself against Wuxia's chest. Even more intimate, Wuxia was already numb. Apart from his shock, he was also envious of Wuxia's luck with women. At this moment, Wuxia and Thought Moon Immortal's posture was the same as when they fought against Wan Zhonggang. At first glance, it looked as if Wuxia was hugging Thought Moon Immortal. Wuxia's right hand was clasping Thought Moon Immortal's left hand, and pressed against her lower abdomen. However, he knew that Thought Moon Immortal was protecting him. There must be some danger ahead, so Thought Moon Immortal was blocking his path. "Don't think too much." Thought Moon Immortal's voice was soft and trembling. In such a posture, she could clearly feel Wuxia's scorching breath. Her neck was itchy and her ears were hot. "I know." Wuxia took a deep breath and calmed his mind. Suddenly, there was the sound of something breaking through the air. In the pitch-black tunnel, there was an instant flash of light. Lu Ye's expression froze. He had no idea where this attack came from. By the time he noticed it, it was already right in front of him. In other words, this attack alone had almost exceeded the limit of what he could deal with. Thought Moon Immortal had unknowingly drawn a sword. Lu Yi, who was almost touching her body, could clearly feel a powerful force surging out of Thought Moon Immortal's body. He raised his sword and slashed down. The attacking light shattered. Thought Moon Immortal's footsteps did not stop, and she continued to move forward. Lu Yi followed like a shadow. Behind him was the lonely Ingwuji, who was on tenterhooks. The Great Sage of Human Tao, manga of the same name, is already online. Everyone can download Tencent Animation to support it. Chapter 921. The sound of blades slashing rang out incessantly as sharp rays of light slashed at her from the front. The long sword in Thought Moon Immortal's hand danced gracefully, blocking all the attacks that came at her. She activated her spiritual power to protect Lu Yi behind her. Like an indestructible mountain, she blocked all the incoming storms. A strange sense of security that she had never felt before rose in her heart. For the first time, Lu Yi couldn't help but seriously look at the woman in front of her. Unfortunately, because her back was facing her, she couldn't see much. She could only see her snow-white slender neck and her elegant hair. Her hair danced, tickling Lu Yi's neck and cheeks like little hands. It was visible to the naked eye that her neck, which was as white as jade, began to redden. Even though her back was facing Lu Yi, the perception of a divine sea realm cultivator was extremely powerful. She could clearly sense Lu Yi's gaze at this moment, which made the Thought Moon Immortal feel rather uncomfortable. The power of her attack became even more fierce. As if she was warning him, Lu Yi looked away. A soft exhalation came from the front. Thought Moon Immortal's tense body relaxed a little. She said, "I don't know what kind of treasure is hidden in front, but it's very likely to be a flying sword." These sword chi were all slashed out by that flying sword. Probably to divert Lu Yi's attention, or to make the situation less awkward, she took the initiative to reveal some information about this place. "I've been here several times, but I couldn't do my best each time. The furthest I went was 300 feet. So I need your help." Lu Yi's attention was indeed diverted. If the sword chi alone can force you to retreat, then what's the flying sword's main body like? Who knows? Thought Moon Immortal was obviously not sure of her judgment. If it was a wide area, she might be able to do it with her ability. However, the passage here was narrow, and there was no room to maneuver or dodge. Facing the slashes of the sword chi, she could only resist them head-on. In this way, she couldn't use any tricks. So she had to bring Lu Yi along. With the rainbow phoenixes, she could borrow the huge vitality in Lu Yi's body anytime and anywhere. There might be a possibility of success. Of course, it was only a possibility because no one knew how long this passage was. "Sir, have you never tried to sneak in?" Lu Yi asked. "I've tried, but it doesn't work. There should be a lot of restrictions here, and as long as someone steps into this place, it will immediately activate the wonders of the restrictions, and endless sword chi will attack continuously." After a slight pause, she said in a low voice, "Don't talk for now." Originally, he wanted to distract Lu Yi by talking, but who knew that it would make the situation worse, because when Lu Yi spoke, there was a hot stream of air rushing into the river. It made her feel very uncomfortable on her neck. Lu Yi understood tacitly. He kept his eyes forward and remained silent. He completely relaxed his body and mind, allowing the Thought Moon Immortal to lead him through the passageway. 500 feet, 100 feet, 200 feet, 300 feet, after shattering countless sword chis, the three of them finally stepped into the deepest part of the missing Moon Immortal's territory. At this point, the frequency and strength of the sword chi attacks had reached an extremely shocking level. Lu Yi knew that he wasn't weak, but if he were to face such a situation alone, he probably wouldn't be able to withstand even a single sword chi. This made him very curious. Just what kind of flying sword, without an owner, could make an expert like the Thought Moon Immortal return empty-handed several times with just the sword chi it activated. Above spirit artifacts were artifacts, and above artifacts were spirit treasures. The flying swords inside were clearly not at the level of spirit treasures, but beyond. What was above spirit treasures? Lu Yi really did not know, because with his current cultivation base, artifacts were the most suitable for him. He could not activate things like spirit treasures at all. The nine-front formation was a spirit treasure, but until now, Lu Yi and Yi were still unable to activate the full power of the nine-front formation. Compared to the last time they came, the Thought Moon Immortal's strength had clearly improved, because the last time she came here, she was already at her limit, but this time it did not seem too difficult. Further ahead was the true test. As expected, the frequency and strength of the sword chis had increased, and Lu Yi could clearly feel the vibrations from each of the Thought Moon Immortal's attacks. He could tell that she was starting to get serious. As they continued forward, the Thought Moon Immortal began to struggle. Lu Yi saw this, but there was nothing he could do. At this moment, he could only help the Thought Moon Immortal in terms of survival. If he interfered, it would only make the situation worse. With a hiss, the Thought Moon Immortal grunted. When the sword chi dispersed, it left a gash on her sword-wielding right hand. Blood seeped out, instantly dyeing her clothes red. However, the Thought Moon Immortal did not stop. Instead, she sped up. Hiss, 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 sword chi constantly seeped out, slicing at the Thought Moon Immortal's body, gradually worsening her injuries. However, Lu Yi, who was protected by her, was unharmed. As for Wuxia, who was further behind, he was also unharmed as he trembled. The smell of blood gradually thickened. Lu Yi could feel the vitality in his body being continuously injected into the Thought Moon Immortal's body through the Rainbow Phoenix's dual flight, giving her the ability to continue fighting. Time passed extremely slowly. After the time it took to brew a cup of tea, the woman in Lu Ye's arms had become a bloody person. If the Thought Moon Immortal had come alone, she would have to retreat with such injuries. Because if she continued forward, she did not know if she would have the chance to retreat. The Great Sage of Human Tao, latest chapters. Domain name, however, because of the injection of Lu Ye's vitality, although her injuries were not light, she did not feel weak at all. Moreover, she discovered that not only could she borrow Lu Ye's vitality, she could also borrow Lu Ye's spiritual power. As a result, Lu Yi had no choice but to take out a demon core from his storage pouch and stuff it into his mouth. Under such circumstances, consuming a demon core was the fastest way to replenish spiritual power. Lu Yi, can you still hold on? Lu Yi, who was eating the demon core, suddenly heard the Thought Moon Immortal's voice. He could not help but be stunned. This was the first time the Thought Moon Immortal had called him by his name since they met. No problem. Then I'll speed up. There was no end to the passage ahead, as if there was no hope in sight. The Thought Moon Immortal was getting impatient. As she finished speaking, the figures stuck close to each other quickly rushed forward. As the Thought Moon Immortal danced in her hands, clinking sounds could be heard. Wuxia, who was following behind, cried out. He hurriedly moved and chased after her. The missing Moon Immortal would protect Lu Yi, but she would not care about his life or death. He could only pray that the missing Moon Immortal was strong enough to hold on. Otherwise, once the missing Moon Immortal died, it would be his and Lu Ye's turn to die. Sword chi surged like tidewater, and the entire passageway became a sea of sword light. It was under such circumstances that the Thought Moon Immortal brazenly charged in. The sword light was destroyed in patches, and the injuries on her body gradually worsened. However, because of the continuous injection of Lu Ye's vitality, she still had the ability to continue fighting. This was a very strange situation. Finally, at a certain point, all the sword light was completely destroyed, and the passage became pitch black. Only the Thought Moon Immortal's heavy breathing could be heard. Are you done? Wuxia asked timidly from behind. Just as he finished speaking, another dazzling light lit up ahead. The sudden flash of light in the pitch-black darkness was so bright that it was almost impossible to open one's eyes. An incomparably sharp killing intent attacked from the front. When Lu Ye's eyes narrowed, the the Thought Moon Immortal had already brought him forward. It was a sword chi that seemed to be able to cut through the void. When the Thought Moon Immortal's longsword met it, the Spirit Treasure longsword actually let out a painful groan. The sword chi was blocked, but it did not disappear. Instead, it continued to slowly slash forward, as if it wanted to cut through the waist of all the intruders. When the crisp sound rang out, Lu Ye's eyelids twitched. He hurriedly looked at the Thought Moon Immortal's long sword. He saw that a small crack had appeared on the longsword. He could not hold on. Once the longsword broke, the three of them would most likely be in grave danger when faced with such a sword-light slash. With a thought, Lu Ye made a decision. He raised the saber in his hand. The arm holding the saber bulged slightly for an instant and stabbed out with the starry sky. Specks of starlight landed on the sword chi. However, how could a true lake-stage cultivator like Lu Ye shake the sword chi that even the Thought Moon Immortal found so difficult to deal with? Kacha! The crack on the long sword became much larger. At the critical moment of life and death, Lu Ye raised his other hand and grabbed the Thought Moon Immortal's sword-wielding hand. Spiritual power surged. On the long sword, a complex and complicated spirit pattern instantly formed. Moon reversal. The Thought Moon Immortal seemed to be able to sense the profoundness of this spirit pattern. She immediately became spirited. The long sword in her hand danced like a fluttering butterfly. In an instant, she stabbed out more than 10 times. The fine sword light pierced the same spot on the sword chi. In the next instant, the seemingly solid sword chi suddenly broke apart from the middle. It split into two and shot towards the two sides of the cave wall. Without a sound, huge and deep slash marks instantly appeared on the two sides of the cave wall. After stabbing out more than 10 times, the Thought Moon Immortal seemed to have lost all her strength. She went limp in Lu Ye's arms. Lu Ye also had the illusion that his entire body had been sucked dry. Although he was unharmed, the Thought Moon Immortal was currently borrowing the power in his body. It could be said that the consumption was huge. His legs went limp. He hugged the Thought Moon Immortal and fell to the ground together. Heavy panting sounds came from their mouths. They were like fish out of water, rising and falling one after another. Wuxia, who was behind them, was dumbfounded. "What's wrong with you guys? Get up quickly." If they didn't get up now, he wouldn't be able to block another attack like the one just now. For a moment, he had the idea of slipping away. Lu Ye and the Thought Moon Immortal clearly realized this as well. They both struggled to get up. Lu Ye leaned against the cave wall while the Thought Moon Immortal nestled in his arms. They stared ahead vigilantly. From the beginning to the end, their interlocked fingers had never loosened. But fortunately, there were no more attacks coming from the front. The Great Sage of Human Tao, latest chapter on the internet. Domain name that unbelievably powerful sword chi just now should be the last attack. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Immortal Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.